of the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency Board of Directors to order. And I'm going to ask Director Kelly if he'd lead us in the pledge.
Please rise, place your hand over your heart, follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
We have the roll call, please.
Chair Craven?
Here.
Director Iranio?
Here.
Director Bennett?
He's here in the latrine.
He'll be back.
Director Kelly?
Here.
Director Borchard?
Here.
Okay, public comments. This is the time that the board will hear from members of the public on items that are not on today's agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to us? Yes. I forgot agenda review. I apologize. I was going to have that later. Okay.
Chair Craven, the attorneys for Viovich and Pleasant Valley have asked that items 5 and 6 be continued to a future date, so we'd request that be granted.
Okay, item 6?
5 and 6.
Oh, 5 and 6. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Yep, that's it.
Board members?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to approve the amended agenda? Motion and a second. We don't need a roll call on that? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Items 5 and 6 will be continued to a time later that's agreeable to all. Now, public comments. This is the time that we will hear from members of the public on items that are not on today's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Oh, to board member comments.
None.
Okay. Consent calendar now. It's approval of minutes of 3 meetings. Was there a motion?
I move to accept the minutes. All 3.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, which consists of 3 sets of minutes. Could we have a roll call on this one?
Chair Craven?
Yes.
Director Iranio?
Aye.
Director Bennett? Absent. Director Kelly?
Yes.
Director Borchard?
Yes.
Informational items. Item number 4, the Moore Park Desalter Project update.
Madam Chair, board members, members of the audience, Gerhard Hubner, Watershed Protection District. I will just be introducing this item and asking Reddy Bacala, Director of County Waterworks District number 19, to give us an update on their proposed Moore Park Desalter project. So with that, Reddy, welcome.
Thank you, Gerhard. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Reddy Bacala with Water and Sanitation Department of the Public Works Agency. I just want to correct in your agenda, I'm representing District 1, not District 19. The proposed project is proposed by Waterworks District number 1. I want to thank your board and your staff for placing our item on your agenda. For some of the LPUG members who are here, this is going to be a repetition. You get to see it second time. District 1 is proposing this project because we believe there are so many regional benefits and also the local benefits. As identified here, some of the regional benefits are it will help wastewater treatment plant within the Cayugas Creek watershed to comply with the salts TMDL, and the salts that are generated or the brine that's generated from this project and other desalters in Cayugas Creek would be exported to the Pacific Ocean through Cayugas SMP. I'll talk more about Cayugas SMP. As you know, Cayugas is investing millions of dollars to develop local water supplies for this region here. And also, it will help us to reduce dependence on imported water, which is a state policy, and all of the local agencies are trying to look into local development of local water. It will also help us with the emergency water supply situation, and also we believe this is going to be drought-proofing Las Posas Valley, where we provide water to District 1, District 19 customers. What you see in the bold there, we thought this proposal is consistent with the Fox Canyon GMA Resolution 2003-03. And also I know we have heard several comments about migration of salts, impact of salts to the East Las Posas Basin. At least from our perspective, it will lessen the migration of salts to the East Las Posas Basin to some extent. And also it will create underground storage. Right now the shallow groundwater basin known as South Las Posas Basin is full. It's spilling into Pleasant Valley Basin, causing water quality degradation for Camarillo wells. So this will create more groundwater storage, and we'll be able to capture more surface water when this project is approved and implemented. And of course, it will create more local jobs. The local benefit we see for both District 1, District 19 customers are our water costs will go down. Just for information, we provide agricultural water to about 500 customers between District 1 and District 19. This is just where District 1 is. Here is where Moore Park College, 118 freeway. Right here is Balcom Canyon Road. So District 1 boundary goes from Moore Park College to Balcom Canyon. This is the city of Moore Park city boundary, and city area is only about 40% of the district area. Most of our area is outside the city limits and agricultural lands. Where District 1 stops, District 19 begins. It extends all the way to just west of Center School Road, and on the south side here is the city of Camarillo. Here is the Las Posas estates here, and you could see the District 19 boundary that we provide. District 19 owns and provides water supply to these properties. You're very familiar with this. I won't spend too much time. There are 7 sub-basins within this GMA. As you can see, we are just showing where the proposed project is within the South Las Posas Basin, right here on the corner there. Here is a larger map of what you see, that arrow. What I'm trying to show you is all of the groundwater, just like the surface water, is traveling from east to west. This is a larger map of the South Las Posas Basin. You can see Simi Valley Wastewater Treatment Plant, or they're also known as Simi Valley Water Quality Control Plant, is right at this location according to the map we have. And we also are showing you where the Moore Park Wastewater Treatment Plant is. And then here is the Hitch Boulevard. I'll have a better map to show the location of the proposed project. Here is where we are proposing between the Arroyo Simi flood control or channel and 118 and Hitch and Moore Park city limits. That's where our proposed project is. I'm going to show a cross-section of AA, where it shows you different aquifers. You have seen this several times as part of your GMA presentations. What's unique about the proposed site is, in this location, based on the field tests we have done, we have identified this shallow aquifer to be completely not connected to Fox Canyon aquifer. As you can see, there's a thick layer of San Pedro Formation, Saugus Formation, as you may recall from your staff reports, that really doesn't have good transmissivity or permeability, so water doesn't really percolate through well. And then this, what we think is we'll be able to pump from the shallow aquifer, not significantly impacting the shallow aquifers within the Fox Canyon aquifer. What this cross-section also shows you, just to give you some bearings, here is where the Arroyo Simi flood control channel is. This is where LA Avenue is, so you can just get an idea with the length of that. And this is about 200 to 250 feet thick.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Which direction are you? Have LA Avenue? Where is it?
Yeah, this is Los Angeles Avenue.
And when we're looking,
This
which
Moore
direction?
Park will go that way.
Okay.
And this is flood control channel, Arroyo Simi flood control channel. This is a map you may have seen in some of the reports. The salts are migrating from shallow aquifer, which are salty, to the East Las Posas Basin. One of the wells recently we found out, District 19 well, is also experiencing high chlorides and TDS. It also has the hardness, which is objectionable to our customers in District 19. We believe salt migration is a problem in this area. We need to do anything we could do to address it. Here is a project team we put together. Anytime you have a complex project like this, we need to have a good team. So what you see on the left side is all of the staff that work from our Moore Park office, our engineering staff, operations staff, and our inspection staff, and also we need a real estate person who is from County Public Works Agency. On the right side, we think we have the bright minds helping us with our studies that we are working on. Hopkins, groundwater consultants, Steve Bachman, Kennedy Jenks consultants, and others who have been helping with different reports that we are doing for this project. We have completed the preliminary design report a few years ago. At that time, we identified the yield of this project to be about 5,000 acre-feet per year. That's a treated water. Then we also talk about all the different treatment processes. I'm not going to go through the details, other than just telling you that at this time our estimated cost for this project is $50 million. That includes both well field and also water treatment plant with reverse or membrane process. And what we are proposing is the $50 million will be invested by Waterworks District Number 1, and we, the District 1, District 19 customers will be benefiting from these investments, local investments for the local water supply, which I heard several times from your board members making these comments. I want to thank your board. In 2012, your board has awarded $220,000 for us to do the first pilot testing. That was in 2012. Based on that first pilot testing, we were able to characterize the area. The cross-section I showed you before came out of that field testing. In 2013, we did more geophysical tests. We still think we need to do more testing this year. As you know, hydrogeology is so complex. In spite of the fact we have all these tools, we still think we need to do more testing before we actually know how many number of wells we need to construct. One of the major one of the big permit that we need to obtain from is the California Department of Public Health. CDPH is the one who issues permits for the water purveyors, and we have to comply with all of the rules. Initially, we talked to them about 18 months ago. At that time, they told us maybe if you can be 500 feet away from the creek, that may be okay. Based on that, we did testing well number 1 and 2. Those are two places we actually did the pump testing. As you can see, well number 2, which is very close to the Arroyo Simi, as anybody can expect, the yield or the pumping was 600 gallons per minute. Right here, you can see that number. The depth of the well was 230 feet. When we went more than 500 feet, then the maximum we could pump was 225. What that tells us is as we go farther away, our yield or production will come down because of the hydrogeology and geology in this area. At that time, after we presented these results to CDPH, California Department of Public Health, they told us they also want to see whether this water that we plan to pump would be under the influence of the wastewater discharges. And they also told us there's an indicator we should test for sucralose. Sucralose is something that in the sweeteners that we all drink in our coffee or Coke or Diet Cokes, and so sweetener. And we went ahead and did the testing for the test well number 2, which is actually closest to the river or the arroyo. We took 2 samples. One is 200 nanograms, if you look bottom here, and the other one is 160. When we went to 500 feet away, it was less than detection limits. We also tested wells close to LA Avenue. It was a detection, less than detection. We also have several groundwater monitoring wells at the Moore Park plant we tested. That's all. Upstream of the Moore Park is less than the detection levels. After we presented this, we also presented this map to CDPH because we wanted to give them a relationship between where the proposed well field is compared to the city of Simi Valley. Moore Park wastewater treatment plant is about 7 miles away from our proposed project site.
Excuse me, right before you go too far, could you go back 2 slides? One more, yeah, there you go. All right, so 2 is closer, okay, then if you could go forward to the well test results?
Yes, 2 is about, 86 feet away from the creek?
Yeah.
This is about 566
Right.
feet.
So now could you go forward to your test results? My question is, what does 200 and 160 indicate? Is that,
That's the level of sucralose in the water.
but is that a high level, a low level, an acceptable level?
Well,
Is there an acceptable level?
Yeah.
Or is there, what does it indicate?
Well,
That
there are no limits for sucralose. However, what CDPH wants to see is, are you getting sewer water? If we can show less than 5 nanograms, we believe we are not getting sewer water into our water that we are pumping. Based on these test results, they asked us to proceed with our project. I just showed this to CDPH because I wanted to show them the relationship between the Simi Valley. And one thing I want to point out to you is the Moore Park wastewater treatment plant here. The proposed project is upstream of the Moore Park plant, and groundwater is not flowing this way. It's all going downhill this way. So our proposal is not to draw any water from this influence of this wastewater, so we are keeping it away from the wastewater treatment plant at the Moore Park. And based on the investigation we have done to date, we are proposing shallow groundwater wells about 200 to 250 feet deep within the shallow aquifer. Maximum number of wells would be 22. However, production wells will only be 20 because we're going to have 2 as a redundant and for mechanical failures or repairs. Then the maximum pumping that we believe we need to pump from the ground, which will be of importance to GMA, is less than 5,900 acre-feet per year. That's 5,875. If we pump that much water from this location, we can produce as much as 5,000 acre-feet per year. We're also proposing that our treatment scheme should be such that the finished water, the treated water, would have chloride limit of 50 milligrams per liter and TDS of about 400 milligrams per liter. Actually, this is better from the salts perspective, better than the state water project we are getting from right now for District 1 and other purveyors within Eastern County. And also there's a reason why we are proposing this, because we are proposing to wheel the water through Cayuga system within District 1, District 19, Las Posas basins. I'll talk about that more. Here is a location of the proposed well field. Again, this is Los Angeles Avenue. Here is Hitch Boulevard going to Home Acres. Our treatment plant is down here. It's not shown on this map. Here is the city of Moore Park city limits. Here is a substation, just to give you some landmarks. Here is the Gabbard channel, flood control Gabbard channel. Here are the 22 proposed location of the proposed wells. And here is the proposed treatment plant itself at the intersection of Hitch and 118 Los Angeles Avenue. The 3D model that was done for this project, they looked at the 30 plus years of stream gauge data from flood control, watershed protection district, and also this model was done all the way from Simi Valley wastewater treatment plant to downstream of Moore Park wastewater treatment plant to about Somos area, maybe about 13-mile long stretch, to the shallow, narrow width of the shallow aquifer. That's where this modeling is done. This model was calibrated against the stream gauges and also against the wells, which I will show the wells that have been used for the calibration of this model. And they have done a very close grid spacing of 200 by 200 feet. They did the stream flow routing. Lots of calculations went into this. This 3D model also projected what would happen next 30 years if this project was approved and constructed, how it will work based on this 3D model. We also looked at the water supply. As you know, there's a big question about how much water Simi Valley will be using and how much water will be coming down over a period of time. So Jeff Pratt and I met with the City of Simi Valley senior management staff. We asked them if they could tell us what their future plans are. They told us that they would plan to take an item to their city council. We are waiting for that item. The reason I mentioned that to you is when we look at scenario one, Simi Valley has urban water management plan, which every water purveyor has. That particular plan shows them using only about 100 acre-feet per year of recycled water. We all know that's not really realistic. They're going to be using more. So that's the reason when we first started, we started using that plan. Then, not knowing any more information, in February of last year, our office prepared what I call the preliminary assessment of water supply. I just took a shot at what all these numbers are, and that's scenario two. Recently, Brian Bondi, who is working on LPUG, and he came up with different numbers. What we are presenting to you is based on scenario two results. Our plan is to see what City of Simi Valley goes to their council with and also figure out where the differences are between these three scenarios and come up with a more realistic number that we all can buy into. Based on the modeling work that we have done, what this shows us is that without a project, there's as much as 21,000 acre-feet of water that's percolating or recharging the shallow aquifer. Again, shallow aquifer is all the way from Simi Valley treatment plant to Solmus area. That's how much water is coming into this aquifer. With project, 25,900 acre-feet. When I looked at the number, I asked Steve, I said, what? Number is going up. Why? He said, that's because you're creating underground storage, so more water, instead of going into the stream, is coming back into this basin. That's why the number is higher. And I also asked Steve if he could tell us, by constructing these 20 shallow groundwater wells, how much storage will we create? So what you see underneath is 6,900 acre-feet is how much storage is created. It doesn't mean it's going to be filling all 6,900 acre-feet, but that's how much storage is created. What this is, we also did what's called a particle tracer study using the 3D model. This was done mainly to show CDPH, get their approval. When we met with them second time after we did the testing for sucralose and also the well testing we did, they told us, we want you to show before you pump from these wells, the groundwater should be within the ground at least for 1 year. One year detention time within the ground. What those numbers you see, 0.51, what that tells you is as each well is pumping, that path of how the groundwater is traveling. So as we moved farther away, so the groundwater is taking the longer path for it to get to these wells. And these are the different wells that were used to calibrate this model. These are existing wells in both the East and West Las Posas Basin, and also show you some of the water levels that were analyzed. Here is a shallow aquifer, which is a South Las Posas aquifer close to our proposed project. As you can see right here, depending on whether it's a wet year from a rainfall event side or dry year, it keeps going up and down, up and down. If you go to San Pedro Formation, because it's not that pervious or transmissivity is low, you don't see much change in the San Pedro Formation. Here are the two other wells that were looked as part of the 3D. One is about 0.05 miles, that's right here. And this is how the fluctuation is over the next 30 years. This is farther away, about 3.2 miles away from the proposed project, how the water levels fluctuate. And here, this shows you, what this is showing is where the existing wastewater Moore Park plant is, proposed well field is. This is Arroyo Simi, Arroyo Las Posas. Here's a Solmus 34. I'm going to show you next one and tell you what is going to happen to the water in the stream, surface water, currently where it is, where we think it will go, depending on what type of scenarios we use. Right now it's scenario 2. What we are showing here is right now with project, we have blue means during a normal rainfall years. The surface water in the creek would be just upstream of that Somas Road, Route 34 you see here, just upstream of that somewhere in this area. But during a dry year, this is somewhere in this area. This fluctuates right now in this without project. With project, assuming we get all the approvals, we construct the project for our schedule, then we are projecting that with project, this stream will be dry during dry weather conditions. I just want to point that out to you. During a rain event, you have water going all the way down to the ocean, depending on the frequency of the rainfall. But this is where we are projecting the stream bed from here to here would be dry during certain months of the year. We also put some numbers here just to show Ventura County Waterworks District itself, how much water it has been importing, what I call a foreign water, and how much groundwater has been stored by our treatment plant, just as a placeholder to just show what has been done over the years. We put in more than 68,000 acre feet over 40, 50 years. And in 2013, we recharged the basin with 1,800 acre feet. And with the proposed project, we are estimating we'll create additional 6,900 acre feet of storage. And in 2013, we imported more than 8,600 acre feet. Just by constructing the proposed Moore Park desalter project, that's not all the investments we need. We need much more investments for us to make this water to be pervade within District 1 and District 19. We need to connect to the District 1 water distribution system, and also our proposal is to connect to the Cayugas distribution line right next to our proposed project and take that water within District 1, District 19 from the existing metering stations. We call them turnouts. So we use all of this water within the Las Posas Valley. We believe that will be consistent with your GMA export policy. And we also need to have Cayugas complete SMP, and they also have to construct SMP discharge station for this proposed desalter project. Here is a map of the salinity management pipeline. Some of you may have seen this before. What this shows is, Cayugas already constructed several phases. Only the missing link, I believe, is 2A, but they have completed all the way to the proposed North Pleasant Valley desalter. And right now they're in design for the ag desalter. Their board recently adopted a CEQA document for them to extend this to Moore Park desalter. But I talked to Susan Mulligan, general manager. She told us that once we complete our CEQA, they will begin design and they would bring it to extend the SMP to our project by the time we complete our project. So they're also looking at two different alternates for this SMP to extend this to Simi Valley. One option is, this was the original proposal to go through Moore Park to Simi Valley, but recently I believe Cayugas, City of Thousand Oaks, and City of Camarosa Water District have been looking at potential salty water, groundwater in these areas. If that's the case, Cayugas may decide to reline their SMP and stop here at Moore Park. One thing I want to point out to you, there are different ag desalters on this map. Ag desalter, here is a Camarosa desalter, Camarillo desalter, ag desalter, Moore Park desalter, West Simi desalter. There are different desalters that are proposed. This is a stakeholder meeting we had. For the last 2 months, we have been making presentations to all of the different stakeholders. What you see in blue is what we have done to date, and the remaining are left over, and we intend to complete those before September. And anybody else who wants to listen to us will be happy to go and speak to them. Here is our proposed aggressive schedule that we have. We will conduct additional field testing. We want to complete those before the end of this calendar year so that we can identify the number of wells and the yield more accurately than what we have now. And also the 3D model will be revised to include the water supply side of it, and also we will prepare a groundwater monitoring program for it. At that time, we will come to your staff, GMA staff, and discuss the proposed project with them. We have prepared a financing plan. Our CEO, CFO, Mr. Paul Dorsey office helped me with that. We looked at this low interest state loan and also revenue bonds for our project. We are identifying the low interest loan as a preferred option for us. And if we were to proceed with the current plan, we can produce this treated water for less than $800 per acre foot. Today we are paying imported water about $1,250 per acre foot, and that imported water costs are expected or projected to increase by about 5% every year for the next 10 years. The construction, next step for us really is we're going to begin EIR process. I'll be coming to our Board of Supervisors, our county board for District 1 with the EIR consultant contract. Our schedule is to complete that EIR within 12 months from now. And once we complete the EIR, then we will begin the well field construction. We would be constructing wells in 5 well increments so that we'll only construct as many wells we need. We'll also pump all the wells at one time, so make sure that we know how much yield will come out of it. We'll also do the composite water quality, take this information and go to the membrane design process. We'll also include the operations plan for the proposed project, and we will have mitigation measures based on what our board approves as a mitigation program. We'll make sure the project operates subject to the mitigation approved by our board. Our goal is to complete the project by the time SMP is extended to Hitch Boulevard. With that, I'll be happy to take any additional questions.
Are there any questions?
When is the SMP proposed to be extended to Hitch Boulevard?
When I put the schedule together, I said our plan is to complete our project by end of 2018. Susan Mulligan, general manager, said they could do it. They could bring it by that time.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
On the first slide that you had, or I should say throughout this presentation, you've been showing that this is a County Waterworks District Number 1 project, but yet on the first slide that you put up there, you stated that District 1 and District 19 were going to have their water rates stabilized. How is this project going to be incorporated into Waterworks District 19, and how does it help in stabilizing Waterworks District 19's rates when it's a Waterworks 1 project?
I was going to come back to that slide. Anyway, yeah. Well, as you know, Robert, on any water system, you have your demand varies so much. So our plan is to use 5,000 acre feet within both District 1, District 19. To the extent that District 19 uses, let's say they use 1,000 acre feet or 800 acre feet, those customers would pay the rates for this water. The balance of that would be paid by District 1 customers. The reason we are trying to make it a benefit for entire Las Posas Valley with this project.
So you plan on using this water throughout your system on both sides of the district in 1 and 19 also?
Correct.
Okay. Also at the very end of your presentation there, you were talking about a mitigation plan and operational monitoring wells and making sure that you were going to minimize any potential impact to the basin. Given that projections are that water supplies are going to be decreasing within the East Las Posas Basin, does that have the potential to impact your project and what you're going to be able to pump and what you're going to be able to treat?
Yeah, what we're proposing is once we go through the EIR process, as part of the EIR process based on the comments we receive, we'll come up with the mitigation measures. We will comply with those mitigation measures. Let's say our mitigation measure, pick a number, a well water level goes down by 15 feet in a given well. Once we start operating the wells, if it goes by 16 feet, that means we need to reduce our pumping. That's what we are proposing.
And you're willing to go ahead and start with construction, even though you don't really know what the impacts may be? Could you potentially end up with a project that's oversized for what the yield is?
We don't believe it's oversized. We believe we are working with the best information we have. We are doing as much field testing as we could. We are going to analyze as much as we could. Just as a contingency plan, we're going to have that as a requirement in our plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Thanks for the time that you have given me.
Thank you for the report. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second? The motion and a second to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're going to get to action items. Numbers 5 and 6 have been removed from this agenda. They will come back at a time that's agreeable to all parties. And so we're going to go on to number 7 on the agenda, draft list of needed information for the issues, problems for developing measures to assure agency long-term sustainable groundwater management. That's a title.
Thank you, Chair.
Could we have the staff report, please?
I don't have to do that title. So, as you know, this is a process that we've undertaken since the April 11th board meeting. I have a very short presentation. As you know, I just mentioned we started this process back in April 11th, and the goal, of course, was to identify all the major issues and problems with relevant information for those issues and problems and develop some recommended solutions for the board to consider. These, again, were the 4 steps that were adopted as part of this process, which was in the adoption of a list, identification of information needed for each of the issue problems, identification of potential initial solutions, and then finally listing some of the advantages and disadvantages for each solution. So this is where we've come so far. We started with our draft initial list on May 28th at your board. They were organized by the issue, a description of each issue, a category of the issue, whether it was legislative policy or operations, and a priority ranking. And then under that, we provided some descriptive narrative to clearly articulate what the issue was, as much to the degree that we could as possible. And then at your June 25th board meeting, you adopted this revised list. So, the next step in the process was utilizing the same information, and we looked at it and we wanted to build upon it so it would be fairly clear as we progress through this process. So we took basically the same table, expanded on it, and we've included now new headers. And again, this all goes back to the April 11th direction. So we've included now a column for the means of obtaining the information, estimates of cost, measures, actions, and methods, or so the output portion, and then the timeline. So I want to, as you have this table in front of you, and that's item number 7A, that this is a level of effort, and again, be very, very clear, to obtain the information. So this is not necessarily an entire level of effort that would be needed to solve a particular problem, but it's the level of effort to obtain the information. And then furthermore, there were several things that are global. So for example, stakeholder input. Didn't want to list it under every item there. Of course, we'll be obtaining stakeholder input. In fact, part of the recommendation today is to release this for a 3-week public review period. And then lastly, some of the cost range represent one-time costs, and then not necessarily ongoing maintenance costs that would probably be associated with some of the information gathering. So I've included one example, unless your board would like to go in much detail, just included one example in self-reporting. So if you go to that particular one, that is item number I2. And so we've divvied up in each example, to the degree that we could, whether they be internal or external. So in this example, for internal, we would look to our existing database, our existing staff reports, and look at our self-reporting data and any information we have. The board also could direct us to do consultant services. We can have somebody else come in, take a look at this information, and ultimately produce a report. You can see some of the cost estimates. There's a range, so depending on the level of information, whether you go consultant service or not, we put a range out there. And as we did each of them and we populated each of the columns and each of the rows, we tried to use consistent criteria, whether it's minimal, considerable, significant, and you can see for it. You can see if we were to do internal, 40 to 80 hours is our range, and if you were to do a contract, 50,000 to 100 is our best professional estimate in terms of that cost. The measure, actions, and methods under this particular one would essentially be your outputs. You have a data compilation. We would request some information. There'd be a report. It was internal. If we were to do a consultant report, of course, there would be an agreement if we need to get access or any contract that we would have to issue to obtain the consultant services. We put a timeline. Again, this is our best professional estimate. Could be shorter. And again, I want to reemphasize that we did not want to put out the solution cost. So initially when I put this together and I started populating many of these things, immediate natural reaction was sort of to go to the solution. What would be the solution in this case? Revised the estimates, the cost, get back to what we're trying to accomplish under this is the estimate for obtaining the needed information. So with that said...
And if I could, while you're on the slide, then, because this is not the solution, we don't have the solution. This is just one of the solutions, one of the possible solutions. With all of these things, we're trying to say, what are the possible solutions? Correct?
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, all we're going to do is list possible solutions, then do advantages and disadvantages of various possible solutions for any of the problems that we have. Right?
Yes. We've also included for you, and this was a direction that came from the last board meeting, you'll see that as another one of the attachments here, where we went and listed each of the dates. So we've attached a board meeting date and with the header, so it's clear that you can follow the process as we move forth in each and every meeting. So with that, conclude my presentation. Our staff recommendation is for you to consider approval of this list for a release for a 3-week public review with any modifications as appropriate. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I don't have questions. I do have
Okay.
some suggestions, or one suggestion.
We'll go for comments now.
Just two. One, this is probably of the four. You know, we have the list of the issues, and we have this, how do we get the information? Then we have the potential solutions, and then we have the advantages, disadvantages. This is probably the least sexy of all of them, right? I mean, it's the driest and all of that. How do you get the information? Certainly, when you think about it, the potential solutions and the advantages and disadvantages of the solutions, I would suspect that'll be much more, we'll be much more engaged in making sure that we have a comprehensive list and that we accurately capture what somebody thinks is an advantage or a disadvantage, et cetera. So all that being said, I don't have a lot to offer here. It seems, as I've read these things, it made common sense. The only add I would request is on B3, and that's page 4 of 12, under credits, conservation, storage, and in lieu of. You know, as we try to get the information that we need to make intelligent, good policy on the issue of credits, it seems like we don't just need what you have here is the historical data that's out there on how did we get to where we are, you know, how many credits do we have, but we also need a legal analysis. What, you know, we need to get, and I don't think we could possibly start on policy on credits without having a legal analysis saying what we can do, what we can't do, what does having a credit actually mean for somebody. So I would suggest a legal analysis be one of the other things that takes place there, either internal, external. It could probably be either way. You could probably do it internally or externally.
Very good.
Outside of that, I don't have any other changes to the list, and my compliments. It's it's more clear. All right, I think that than our first round of stuff that's come up and stuff. So I believe it's ready to go out for 3 weeks for people to review it.
Okay. Let me just ask this. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to comment on this particular item? The last time it was here, we didn't have anybody comment on it. I don't see anybody moving to come up and talk to us, so we're ready to act.
I'd make a motion to accept staff's list as a draft to send out for stakeholder input for the next 3 weeks,
With the one addition?
with the one addition of legal
Under
analysis.
B3.
Yeah, under B3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comments? Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Craven,
Yes.
Director Uranio,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director Borchard.
Yes.
Okay, number 8 is a change in semi-annual reporting period for agricultural operators. Could we have a staff report, please?
Good afternoon, Chair Craven and directors. For the record, my name is Rick Vergoots. I'll be presenting today's item. I don't have slides for you. This is a fairly straightforward staff report. Essentially, with agencies' move towards the irrigation allowance program for all agricultural operators, and also changing the sequencing of that program from a calendar year, January through the end of December, to a crop year, August through the end of July, we've had to shift the semi-annual reporting period. Initially, we were going to shift it at 6-month increments, so it would be August through February and then following after that. But what we realized by doing that, we no longer get an annual roll-up of extractions in the GMA. Normally, we roll up the extraction values at the end of December, and we use that information in the annual report. So what we're recommending is that for this new agricultural reporting period required with the move to the irrigation allowance index and the change in the cycle, that we, instead of using a 6-month period, we use a 5-month period closing on December 31st, and then a 7-month period which would close in the end of July. And we're seeking your board's approval to do that.
Any questions? No questions? Okay,
Pretty straightforward.
seems pretty straightforward to me. Is there anyone who would like to speak to us on this item? Okay, board comments? What are your wishes?
Move the recommended action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Craven,
Yes.
Director Uranio,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director Borchard.
Yes.
Okay, moving right along. Item number 9, Mesa Union School District application for Ag to M&I historical allocation transfer.
Good
Could we have the
afternoon.
staff report, please?
Good afternoon, Chair Craven and directors. For the record, my name is Kathleen Rydell, and I'm here to present this item, staff report. On June 23rd, 2014, the Mesa Union School District requested an agriculture to municipal and industrial allocation transfer. Per Section 5.3 of the Ordinance Code, it provides for a transfer of allocation when irrigated lands change to M&I use. And Ag to M&I transfers are required to be approved by your board. Here I have provided a 1989 aerial photograph. You can see this is during the historical allocation base period. It shows that the land on the east side of the school is being used as agricultural land, also on the south and also on the west. And this is Mesa Union School. The land is being farmed and owned by Midtag Farms, and the wells supplying the water for irrigating these fields, one well is down in this area and the other well was located at this location during the historical allocation period. 3.4 acres on the east side of the school is of concern for this item. That was transferred over, and I'll show you slides to show when it got transferred to school property, and 3.43 acres on the south side. So here's an aerial photograph of the school in 2004. You can see the agricultural land on the east side. These are current parcel boundaries, outlined in pink. And you can see the agricultural land on the south side of the school campus. In 2003, a well was constructed on site, and the campus in 2004 was granted baseline allocation, 10.5 acre feet, that was associated with this parcel and could be used for water extracted from that well. And here it is in 2010, and you can see that not much has changed as far as the irrigated area. And so there was no change in the campus, basically. The campus is about 9.85 acres or 9.8 acres. And the baseline allocation was based on a campus 7 to 10 acres. So that was to take care of the campus at that time. So this is to show since then. So here you have the 2010 aerial photograph. You can see the irrigated agricultural land. And then this is the 2012 aerial photograph. And it was during 2011 that the land transferred from agricultural to municipal and industrial use. It was brought to our attention that there was a need for this ag to M&I transfer when they were reporting last year problems with their semi-annual extraction statements having surcharges. And we thought at first it was the meter, and then they checked water line problems, and then they were checking for irrigation practices in the field. And then it was disclosed that they had added land to their campus. So, if approved, 3.66 acre feet per year of historical allocation would be transferred to the on-site well, and they're requesting that the allocation transfer be made effective to January 1st, retroactive to January 1st, 2011, because the land was transferred from ag use to M&I use in 2011. Additionally, if approved, the historical allocation associated with the wells that serve the parcel, that serve that agricultural land, be debited 1.578 acre feet and 2.3 acre feet respectively. The analysis for that was included in the staff report in your agenda packet. And I can go into further detail if you want to, or we can leave it at that.
I just have one question.
Sure.
You read the word, you said 3.6 acre feet, but this PowerPoint site says 13.6.
13.66 is
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. The transfer allowed by the ordinance code is 2 acre feet per acre when it transfers from ag to M&I. And so this takes care of that 6.83 acre feet of agricultural land that transferred. And so 2 times 2 acre feet per acre.
I have a question.
Sure.
If we're moving 13.66 of historical to the school, why are we not removing the same amount from the agricultural operation?
Okay, that has to go to the analysis. The ordinance code allows for a transfer from ag to M&I. It states that M&I gets 2 acre feet per acre.
Okay.
The analysis to derive this 1.57 and 2.3 is based on the wells that irrigated the land. If I go back to that 1989 aerial photo, you can see the entire land. And it was Midtac Farms that stated that those wells at that time, during the historical allocation period, was irrigating a certain number of acreage. So they took the historical allocation that was developed on that well from that, irrigating that land during that period, and then they divided it per acre. And so when you figure out the per acre rate of what the historical allocation would be, it comes out to these amounts.
So while the number is really negligible, we are still talking about expansion of use.
It does increase. And so with these ag to M&I transfers, it was in March, I believe, of 2011 that the board asked staff to bring these forward for approval without the no net detriment determination being made.
Okay, thank you.
I'm, just to follow up on Mr. Aranio's question. So if 13.6 historical allocation is being moved to the school,
Yes.
it's not being removed from the,
13.66 is not being removed from the wells combination, from the wells that supplied that parcel at that time, that land. Yeah.
So an easy way, the GMA ordinance that you have in place says whenever you transfer ag to M&I, M&I gets 2 acre-feet per acre, whether that was served by water or not. So if there hadn't been a well there, or nobody was, it would still get this amount of water. That's the way, the emergency ordinance did nothing to address that. When we reduced the take on the wells that were supplying water there, we reduced it proportional to the area supplied, the water divided by the acreage, which is consistent with your board's direction in the ordinance.
but are we just sort of creating a new net 13.6?
We always have.
Historical allocation. So we actually create a new historical allocation.
In many, and then Kathleen, if I might, on many occasions, this has happened with the M&I.
So
Most notably in Camarillo near Springville, that was the last one you saw. And that was a fairly significant number there because they hadn't been getting ag water.
So in the long run, it's an issue we should probably
Absolutely.
address. Right,
Yes.
as we're looking at our other issues. Can we add that to the list?
Whatever your board wants.
Right.
I'm pretty sure concrete or asphalt parking lot's not going to consume too much water.
Right.
The 13.66, is that gross or net?
That is historical allocation. It would be reduced from there to get adjusted historical allocation. Currently, the adjustment prior to emergency ordinance E is 25% reduction to get to adjusted historical. And the 13.66 would be adjusted by the amount, which is 3.87. So it would be closer to a net increase of 9 acre-feet per year.
This whole project was precipitated through no fault of the school. They discovered the high-pressure gas line in front. They had to build like a explosion wall and move the kids away from the road and all of that went with it.
I mean, I completely support the project. I support this. I just want to make sure we don't have unintended consequences
Yeah.
on the historical
No, but
allocation issue.
the exec officer is exactly correct. This was the last major brouhaha we had over this was Camarillo. And, we decided what we decided for here and thereafter. Now, if we want to go back and redecide it slightly different, it's appropriate maybe.
There are some cases in the ag to M&I transfers when we're not able to identify which wells did provide water to the parcel's land being transferred in use. So this one, we were able to identify the wells.
It's definitely a net plus up, and it's something in the long term your board, in the context of where we are today, may want to reconsider. But in a lot of cases, it's a plus up. In fact, in my experience so far with all these, it's been the majority of cases. Only rarely is there more ag historical allocation than there is land conversion, the 2 times the land being converted.
But that's a net up in allocation. Does that follow through to use?
We don't know that. Yeah.
Because I think it's a no harm, no foul process.
I guess just to
Well,
explore this,
the use wouldn't be limited to that particular acreage. The use would be to any place they serve.
I agree with you. On the school's use, the question would be on the remaining agricultural land. I just at least question, is there an issue? I don't know whether there's an issue or not.
Well, I would suspect that the Grether farm is going to double their hoses because they got all this new water.
Kathleen, can you go back, please, to an aerial of the site?
Do you want to go further back?
No, that's perfect. So we see a significant amount of sod and field that has gone in, including some parking lot too. Yeah, they're going to use that water. Thank you.
Okay. Oops.
Okay.
So recommendations, approve the allocation transfers, and per the ordinance code, adjustments to extraction allocations pursuant to the applications for adjustment shall be considered for approval by the board after reviewing the findings and recommendations of the executive officer, and if approved, shall be effective for the remainder of the calendar year and for all subsequent calendar years until modified by a subsequent board approval adjustment. And this request is for it retroactive to 2011, and I'm aware that that has been done before by the board, but it's at your board's discretion or approval, and you can request information from council.
Are there any questions at this point? Not comments,
One more
but
question.
questions. Yes.
So our ordinance code, executive officer, our ordinance code states that this is the way it's done.
That's correct.
So, board's bound by the ordinance code until it's changed.
Or until you decide to step out of it. I mean, it's your choice. You can modify it. But
Currently, we have an ordinance in place, and
We can't modify it today, so we're operating under the ordinance code. Is there anyone here from Mesa Union who would like to talk to us? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, I'm Michael Babb, I'm the superintendent of Mesa Union School District,
Welcome.
which was pictured earlier. I just wanted to read a letter that I had written about the issue, that the little bit of clarification, I guess, or more information about what was done in those aerial photos, that in 2011, the district purchased 3.85 acres from Mitag Ranches. This increase was necessary to move the school playground from Highway 118 to increase student and staff safety. As was mentioned, there was underground gas and natural gas and oil pipes out in front of the school, so a blast wall was created, and then the playground was moved, and then that whole area was asphalted, and then the purchased land was turned into playground area and football field for the students. And then what happened was the transition was done without the change in the historical allocation. So working with your agency staff, we discovered that we had not increased our baseline allocation or changed the newly secured land status from agricultural to municipal and industrial. So for this reason, we're being billed at a much higher rate, and we're being charged penalties on that. So we're hoping to get some relief from the costs. It looks like we missed an opportunity to get an agricultural to municipal and industrial historical allocation transfer. In addition, we may have missed a step needed to get an additional baseline allocation. So we're hoping to rectify that with this request. And so we hope that you'll consider it and help us. It probably doesn't seem like a lot, but for our small budget, we're a one-school district. It'd be quite a hit, the billing as it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to us? Okay, I'll open it up for board discussion.
I'll bet they didn't cover this in the administrative credential for superintendents. I don't know if I explain anything, but I'd move the recommended action.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
None.
Okay, let's have a roll call.
Chair Craven?
Yes.
Director Iranio?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Yes.
Director Kelly?
Yes.
Director Borchert?
Yes.
Okay, item carries unanimously. Item 10. Yeah. We have 7 requests for exception from temporary prohibition on new extraction facilities. And before we get started, I'm going to read this process because we're going to have a little bit different process than we've had in the past, and we're going to have a little bit different process than we have on items earlier today, because this is a public hearing. So we're first going to have the report given by our staff member, and then we're going to have questions of the staff from the decision-making body, that's us, opening of the public hearing, a statement by the project policy proponent or applicant, statements in support, statements in opposition, rebuttals, and closing statements, and then a decision by us. So with that, we'll ask for the staff report, so we'll move forward.
Once again, good afternoon, Chair Craven and directors. Sorry about that.
Now, do I look like him?
No, you don't at all. And I knew it was you, but for some reason it just came out wrong. So, can I have the slides? Thank you for reading the title. Well, going with the first slide that isn't there. Emergency Ordinance C was adopted, as you are aware, on April 11th, 2014. Oh, well. It imposes a temporary moratorium on the issuance of permits for groundwater extraction facilities. And it does allow for the issuance of permits for replacement, backup, and standby facilities, which do not allow for the initiation of any new or increased use of groundwater. Any new or increased use is one that did not exist or occur before the effective date of the emergency ordinance, and your board may grant exceptions from the moratorium on a case-by-case basis. The agency has received 7 applications, and that's what's included in the packet. I'll just let you know a heads up that we have 2 more, but they are incomplete, so they were not included in this staff report, and we're waiting for those applications to be completed. So these 7 applications, they're to either replace water provided by the pumping trough pipeline system or replace active, inactive, or destroyed wells. The proposed wells would serve agricultural land, which was provided water from private wells during the historical allocation base period, or some part-time during that historical allocation period, and then they went during the historical allocation period on the pumping trough pipeline. And then private water supply was replaced in whole or part by a blend of both surface water and groundwater provided by the United Water Conservation District's pumping trough pipeline. The initiation of delivery of pumping trough pipeline water resulted in the destruction of private upper aquifer system wells or the modification of those wells to limit their use. And the United Water Conservation District has indicated that water from its PTP system may not be available starting September of this year, and agricultural operators that are currently receiving this PTP water will be without water to supply, and in this particular case for these applicants, they have no other water supply to irrigate their land. I've provided this 1989 aerial photograph so that you can see the parcels that will be irrigated with the water. So I have assigned them. This isn't working. I have provided the application number. Those numbers are assigned when the application is received, so that this is FCGMA application permit number 202. A portion of their land, it would include this parcel and a parcel just off this particular aerial photograph, and 203 is also truncated. The rest of that parcel extends to the south. 209, 210, 213. On some of the maps, you'll see that 213 is also shown up by Highway 101. This is a particular parcel that will be receiving the new well if it's approved and be irrigated. The other parcel labeled 213 is another one that was listed in support documents with that application. So, but that parcel has its own supply from United Water and would not be receiving water from the proposed well. So that's 213. 211 is actually 4 parcels, and this is the outline of those parcels, and then 215. The PTP system overlaid on this 2001 aerial photograph is shown in blue, And once again, there's that parcel I was discussing, 213. Actually, the well is to be located on this parcel down here. And so I've outlined the areas to receive the water in yellow, and it's in the south central part of the Oxnard Plain Basin. And there's the Camarillo Airport for reference and Highway 101. So as United Water Conservation District prerequisite to receiving water from the PTP system, United Water Conservation District required that existing upper aquifer system wells be destroyed or modified. The wells reduced from full surface to limited surface, not to exceed 5 acre-feet per year, plus it allows for additional quantities if necessary due to emergency conditions, and it defines emergency conditions as unavailability of water from United to owner for a continuous 24-hour period. And that's just background information. The water delivered through the pipeline is a combination of both groundwater and surface water. The percents, groundwater percent surface water varies year by year. And during the 5-year period that we looked at to evaluate, and included in our staff report, is the variation was from 5 to 62% between 2009 and 2013. And it should be noted that in the first half of 2014, the percent groundwater is 75 to 96%. Reported annual groundwater extractions for the PTP pipeline, the lower aquifer system wells, and that's for the period 2009 to 2013, varied from 512 in 2010 to 4,647 acre-feet in 2013. And in 2013, the allocation and credits was exceeded by 1,190 acre-feet. For reference, to see what groundwater conditions are in the PTP area, I have overlaid is the PTP pipeline system in blue, and then the irrigated or parcels to receive wells and be irrigated by the proposed extractions are also shown on this. And you can see on the 2012 potentiometric surface for the upper aquifer system that water levels generally range from there's about a half a foot there, about 1 foot, up to about, that's 26, I believe. Have to look at that. About 25 feet for the upper aquifer system. If we go
25 feet above sea level?
above sea level.
Right.
So that range from 1 to 25 feet above sea level. If we look at the 2013 map, we see that water levels range from 4 feet to 15 feet below sea level in the same area. And then that is a decline of approximately 5 to 20 feet. And then just for reference to look at the past drought in 1990, this is what it looked like in 1990, and that was about 10 to 20 feet below the fall 2013 water levels. Then moving on to the lower aquifer system, this is the 2012 map, and you can see that water levels in 2012 in that area range from about minus 20 feet below sea level to minus 90 feet below sea level. And moving on to fall of 2013, water levels range from minus 30 to minus 110 feet below sea level. And then just to look back to see where it was during the last drought in 1990, or major drought. In 1990, water level elevations range from 114 to minus 114 to minus 250 feet below sea level. So that concludes the background information. Now for the analysis and discussion. Per Emergency Ordinance E, applications for exception to the moratorium on well permits shall conform to the requirements of Section 5.2.2.3 of the Agency Ordinance Code and approved by the Board, makes findings set forth in Section 5.2.2.4 of the Agency Ordinance Code. That analysis was provided in your the board letter that was provided to you. I was going to summarize each one of the accounts. So once again, here is the aerial photograph showing where these applications, the parcels that are to be irrigated, are located. And I will now go through by application. So this is for Bengard harvesting, and I'll just give you the proposed extractions numbers. They're proposing to extract 383 acre feet. And you can see at the bottom of each slide, I'll have the acreage irrigated, the proposed crop, and the historical allocation. This is for Memaki Trust, and the proposed extractions are 129 acre feet. This is for Stephen Dodge and Fred Rosenmund, and their proposed extractions are 220 acre feet per year. These are also included in the table 1 that was included in the board letter, the staff report to you. So you can see these numbers also, I guess the historical allocation is included in the letter and such. EH Land Company, it's 138 acre feet for application 210. For their application 211, they are proposing to extract 276 acre feet on their application. Fukutomi Farms, their proposed extractions are 124 acre feet per year. And for application 215, the proposed extractions are 155.4 acre feet. So 5.2.3.7 requires an analysis on the potential impacts to the water balance in any basin resulting from the proposed uses. Typically, agency staff evaluates this based on what is the increase in pumping versus what is the pumping of the basin or of that particular area. So in looking at the increase in pumping over the groundwater that was provided to them and the groundwater they used in the last 5 years, it was actually the highest groundwater use provided plus the average of their 5-year average of their groundwater extractions for on-site wells. So the increase is 771 acre feet per year. The Oxnard Plain Basin, the average over that 2009 to 2013 was 55,655 acre feet. The estimated increase is approximately 1.4%. And it should be noted that this increase would occur during a drought when groundwater levels are declining. So your board may approve the proposed use if, after a public hearing, it finds that the proposed use will result in no net detriment to the basin or aquifer associated with the use by determining either the proposed use will not result in a material degradation of water quality of any type, or recharge to any aquifer within the agency is not materially diminished. And I just would like to go to the second item first, that this is in the central south portion of the Oxnard Plain Basin. It's not known as a major recharge area for the aquifer. There is some recharge that does occur in this area, but this is agricultural land, so we're not inhibiting downward migration of water by the farming use of the land. So going on now to address the potential use will not result in material degradation of water quality. Of concern would be water that is taken at this area, and as you extract it, you're diminishing the water that is flowing to push, to keep the saltwater intrusion in the coastal areas. So the more water we extract, it draws down water tables and could do a gradient such that it would increase the potential for saltwater intrusion, and we're in a drought. So that would be of concern when looking at these applications as far as water quality degradation. But the Your decision is based on either one of these two, that it's either does not result in material degradation of water quality or does not materially diminish recharge. To address the quantity of water that they would be using for these proposed wells, we have provided your board with some options. Option 1 is to deny the applications. Option number 2 is to limit the extractions to past groundwater use, no increase in groundwater demand, potential for low impact on water quality because you're not extracting any more groundwater than you have been in the past. It's not an expansion of use. And then option 3, limit extractions to irrigation allowance index. That would be consistent with the other agricultural operators that are in the vicinity, because all ag operators under Emergency Ordinance E can use irrigation allowance index. This has a potential to increase groundwater demand and increase the potential for impact on water quality. Option 4 is to limit extractions to surface water and groundwater use, and that is what water they receive from the pumping trough pipeline, plus any groundwater extracted from their on-site wells. And so that combination, if you wish to put that as a permit condition limit, this would increase groundwater demand and has the potential to impact water quality. And then option 5 is any other option that your board would like to decide upon. In granting approval to the projects, the board may impose, per the ordinance code, any conditions as may be appropriate, including limitations on quantity of water use, term of the approval, and periodic reporting to the agency. Suggested permit conditions were included in the staff report, and I can provide those now, but I know it's written on page 5 and 6 of the staff report. So in conclusions, permits may be approved or denied by your board. We have provided some options for your consideration. To approve a permit, your board must find that either the proposed use will not result in material degradation of water quality of any type, or recharge to any aquifer within the agency is not diminished. Questions?
Okay, this isn't a time to comment, but if you have any questions of staff, it is the time for questions of staff. Are there any questions? No questions. Okay, thank you. Would any of the appellants like to speak to us? Why don't you sit in the first couple of rows and come up and be sure to give us your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. My name is James Dubois. I'm with Ryder Brothers and with Tara Enterprises. I'd also like to introduce Jeffrey Bates. He's a project manager for Pacific Coast Drilling. I'm here to provide additional info and answer any questions that you may have regarding our request for the replacement well. It was numbered 215 on the map. The property we're seeking the replacement well for is 50 acres, approximately 50 acres near the corner of Willie and Rose, typically planted in strawberries. The property is on the PTP system, and the PTP system is the primary source of water on this property. We do have an active ag well that we've maintained as a backup, but have pumped minimally in compliance with our contract with United. It does fall under the second bullet point. It is a limited use contract. However, there is an emergency allowance for water used when the PTP system is interrupted. Upon finding out that the PTP was to be interrupted, we further assessed the condition of the well. We started this process in March of 2014, which is about a month before this ordinance was passed. I'd like to pass this off to Jeffrey Bates for a moment to explain the process.
So the due diligence was done on this well, of the existing well. The pump was pulled and there was some evaluation done to look at the structure. The structure was found to have filled up partially to about 100 feet, 120 feet with fill material. So the due diligence continued later on in March to try to extract or remove a lot of that fill material from the well. And through that, we found that not small rocks, but large rocks large enough to get through our 4-inch airlift pipe came out of there, and we're getting a lot of that. Further video showed that not only do we have large rock material in the bottom of the well, but it appeared that sections of the well had been removed, degraded to the point where material was falling in. Therefore, what we determined is that that structure was becoming unstable and unsafe to work around, because of the more material that would come in, the more potential you would have for the overburden sediment to collapse around it, create an unsafe environment. So we went back to the customer at the time and said it truly is an unsafe well to be continuing on to do any work. And at this point, it's really not a salvageable well for the kind of production that they would need for that system.
Just a couple additional points. We are not asking for increased use on the property. We're not expanding acreage or anything like that. What we're asking for is the volume of water required to maintain our crop on the property. And also, this is not meant to be a permanent water source solution for this property. When the PTP is back online, we would go back to that system. So whenever that may be, we would do that. Just wanted to make that clear. Additionally, on this property, we have invested significant time and money in efficiency. We have developed a system in which we convert to drip on our plant establishment much earlier than we had previously, and much earlier than on other properties. We've also invested in soil moisture monitoring technology to better schedule our irrigations and be more efficient. These are all the comments I have right now. Is there any questions for me or Mr. Bates?
Questions?
Is this well you're addressing at this time the old Donlin well, or which well is it?
Yes, it's the Donlin property well.
They're on Woolley?
Yes, it's 1 APN east of the southeast corner of Woolley and Rose.
Right, thank you.
I'd like to ask a question of staff, but while you're still at the podium in cases. So if this well that they do have, maybe if this well that they do have that they don't find in very good condition now, was in good condition, could they start pumping from that well and not be here in front of us?
That is correct.
What's that?
That is correct.
That is correct.
They are allowed to have replacement wells, and their agreement with United Water allows for backup emergency wells.
Right, so if this well was in good shape, they wouldn't have to come to us for a new well, and they could just turn that well on and start pumping.
Yes.
To replace their PTP.
Yes.
Is that right? Thank you.
I have a question for the applicant. In the table that was provided to us by staff, it shows that your greatest amount of water that you received from United, including groundwater and surface water, was 117 acre-feet, yet the proposed extraction in your application is asking for 155 acre-feet. And then I thought I heard you say that you're not planning any net increase in your water demand.
So the 150 is an approximate number that would, in the future, if there were some crop conversion to take place, such as a crop that had a higher allowance index value on the table, it's just an approximate number that was somewhere between our current use and what would potentially be used if it were converted to a higher water demand crop. We don't anticipate changes in the crop composition of that property, so it would currently fall under the irrigation allowance index value of, I think it's 2.4 or 2.5 for the Oxnard Plains strawberries. So that number would actually be less.
And are you number 210?
215.
215.
215, thank you. I have one other question. When the PTP came in, your arrangement with United was that you were going to keep that one well and use it only for domestic purposes. Is that correct?
It was not to be. It was to be maintained as a backup well in the event at a backup ag irrigation well in the event of a service interruption for over 24 hours.
There wasn't an agreement that that well would be removed and.
No, and I have the wording in the agreement here. If you'd like me to read
okay.
that to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to ask the rest of you as you get up to not only state your name, but tell us which permit application number it is that we're talking about.
Hello, my name is Chris Halstead. I'm with Fukatomi Farms. I believe that we're permit number 213. If you look at the page numbers down below, the information that I'm referring to is going to be item 10F.
Okay.
It says down at the bottom, there's some page numbers in the
Okay.
packet here. First of all, I'd like to thank Kathleen Rydell for all of her hard work. She's helped us out immensely, and she put all this together. Not only has she helped us, she's helped quite a bit of people and put together a lot of information here. I would like to address the 1.4% increase that Kathleen Rydell had mentioned here. The water that we had been using before has been blended. Like she had said, 4% of that has been surface water that has come to us before. So the reason why this 1.4% increase would be there is because that surface water would no longer be used for our irrigations. The reason I'd like to address that is because in the previous 2 years before we started having these drought situations, our ranch specifically had reduced our water use by 21.7%. So although you're seeing an increase in water here, you're still seeing a lot of work and effort by ourselves and our fellow farmers to reduce the amount of water that we are using to maintain the crops that we have. And so you may be seeing a small increase here, but we're still working very hard to be as efficient as we possibly can. We're using drip tape, and like Ryder Brothers, we're constantly working on trying to use more drip tape during our plant establishment, and to reduce that overhead sprinkler use, we are using new technologies of water moisture sensors, and doing everything we can to try to get that number down. What I would recommend amongst the options that Kathleen had presented for decisions by the board today would be to decide on the IAI allowance, and that 1.4% increase in water use, groundwater use, would be very reflective of the IAI. And the reason I ask you to choose that is because the rest of our farmers are going off of that number, and that number is, I believe it's 2.3 acre feet per acre for strawberries, and that's a very, very hard number for us to hit. Like I said, we've reduced our amount of water that we've used by 21.7% in the years previously, and we're still going to have to do work to hit that IAI. And so to reduce us below that, to cut off that 1.4% would force us to try to farm at a rate that the rest of our peers aren't farming at. Have you any more questions for me?
Any questions? Thank you very
Did
much.
you have,
Oh,
yeah, excuse me, thank you.
Sure.
Did you have existing wells that you destroyed because you got on PTP?
We do have
What's the
existing
history?
wells on the property. Our historical allowance is 186 acre feet. We're asking for 124 acre feet. It may look a little more than what our historical use for that well is because we have a domestic well on that property as well, and we've decided to use that same area for the new well, so that old domestic well would not be there anymore, and the new well would go in its place, and that water is used for drinking water for our crews. So there is about a difference of about 2 acre feet.
What was your arrangement with United when you went under the PTP? Was it to destroy your wells?
Our arrangement with United was to destroy the well to go on the PTP, and so we've been using sole water from the PTP, and without this well, we would not be able to.
So you destroyed the wells that you were supposed to destroy?
I believe so. I've been around for a while, just a little while, not since that happened, but.
Seems like a pretty big question, whether you have a well or you don't have a well.
We did have a well. We have a well out there, but it's non-op.
But it hasn't been destroyed?
Hasn't been destroyed? Yeah.
Perhaps this fellow is a recent manager and doesn't know the
the exact history. I know that there is a well out there an ag well that is out there that has been destroyed, and I believe is for the PTP's purpose.
Thank you.
Yes.
I believe Kathleen would like to.
On the slides that I presented for aerial photographs of each of the sites, those outlined where the parcels to be irrigated. Also on those slides are as green dots are active wells and red dots are destroyed wells. So if we looked at those slides, those pictures, you would be able to see which ones, where the destroyed wells are. And then also with the United Water Agreement, I understand that they were allowed to keep domestic wells, limited use, 5 acre-feet per year.
Right.
Excuse me, Kathleen, just an attempt to maybe move this along a little bit, but all the applicants previously had wells before they went on the PTP system?
No, there
No.
were 2 applicants that have no wells on their parcel. Well, one applicant that has no wells on the parcels. The other one has had a well, but it seems that the historical allocation has been assigned to the city of Oxnard, so I'm not sure on that arrangement. But that was noted on the table.
It seemed that you indicated, or maybe I was reading in the staff report, that these parcels were using groundwater before agreeing to go on the PTP system.
Some of the parcels that do not currently have wells, one of them, I guess there was another one, Mimiki, they did not have, they have a domestic well, but the majority of their water was provided by an adjacent parcel operated by somebody else. And so when the PTP system came on board, they moved off of their neighbor's
Okay.
supply and then went on the PTP, so they wouldn't have had a historical allocation associated with their site because it would have been on that other well and then through the PTP system.
So like with everything we hear, it becomes more and more entwined and complicated as we get into the details, but it seems, am I correct in saying that these parcels all were served by groundwater before going on PTP?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Mike Kachandy, parcels 210 and 211. I'm the owner, E&H Line Company, and operator, farmer, strawberry farmer, third generation strawberry farmer. You know, we've taken, we were forced last year to reduce the amount of water. There wasn't a lot on the line in the United Water line, so you know we've been at 4 drip tape. We're taking every step possible. You know, just same as riders, the same as my neighbor at the Fukatomi Ranch. You know, I bought these parcels just recently. Obviously, I didn't sign up for United Water. Where I came from, we had a little more water rights than I'm currently seeing here. You know, we put pretty much all the company's savings, you know, ended buying these 2 parcels here. And, you know, I think I bought the Taylor Ranch in 2006, and I just recently bought the Donlin Ranch in 2010. The Donlin had wells on it, as did, I mean, like he said, Mr. Borcher said, all these properties, no one would have signed up. They were all farmed before. They all had wells. We have no out. This is it. So it's, you know, we either have, you know, a permit to farm, or you know, everybody employed by us, our business, you know, it's over. I mean, and we're at the you know, the end of the line here. I mean, we're almost behind schedule on bedding up and all that stuff. You know, you know, I've came from Orange County, and you know, down there we've been taught to conserve by $700 an acre foot for water. You know. It's very expensive to grow strawberries down there. So for me, it's always been in the forefront of my mind for obvious reasons. You know, when you're spending $2,000-3,000 an acre for water. But I hope we can get this approved, and if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Steve Dodge. I think the previous speakers kind of covered everything. Before the PTP system, we had a well there that was destroyed by United Water, and we were getting our groundwater from them before. There's a domestic well on the ranch, but it feeds 2 houses. But do you have any questions?
If you would, you didn't tell us
Oh, the
which permit
209.
number. Pardon?
209?
209.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Saved me a lot of fumbling time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I don't have my number, so.
You got 202 or
I'm the last
203?
one. I am the last one, so. Anyways, my name's Bob Suzuki. I'm representing Mimaki on their request. They have a domestic well, but they were using Ryder Brothers, or a shared well with Ryder Brothers at one point before the PTP came in, and they had to go strictly to the PTP for their water. They've been there for 30 years now, and they have about 20 acres of greenhouse there, so they expended a lot of money for the structures and for the buildings there, and we have rental property there also. Specifically, we rent to Syngenta Bioline, and they put out biologicals for the strawberries and such in the area. So we're in need of water to keep our rentals happy, and the biologicals and the strawberries and raspberry people happy too. Because the biologicals are for the two-spot mite, and there's not a lot of miticides that'll control them right now. So we do have limited domestic water, but that's about it. And we got a lot of structure that's a lot of money that we need to irrigate also. We're generally cut flower growers. We do, for the last 25 years, we've had micro sprinklers and drip tape like the strawberry guys have now, but that's our main source of irrigation is drip and micro sprinklers. Is there any questions I can ask or answer for you?
Questions?
Yeah, Kathleen, if you would, on their hoop houses and all that they're using to raise the mites, which then feed on the predators, the predators feed on the mites, what allocation or IAI would we be using for that? Or
It would be beans. They raise the two-spot on beans.
I'm sorry, could you speak up? I couldn't hear you.
They grow beans in there.
Beans.
I rent to Syngenta, and I'm not even allowed to go in their houses because for years we raised cryptolemus in our houses, and so they do the same thing over with us. But that would be then a logical crop to be held against. If you had that cut back, what percent can you handle off of the bean allocation before you're severely impaired? Because in my world, I see us getting, we're going to have to tighten this wench down.
I think it's a matter too, is we grow other crops, within that nursery itself. We have cut flowers, and we have had hydroponics before. About 4 years ago, we cut off the RO because that wasted too much water, and we went back to just injecting with using cocoa bags and using United Water as a source. But even at that 6 acres of hydroponics, we're whittling down to 2 now, after these years of drought.
But if we choose what was presented to us as items or choice 3 and put you on IAI, you'll have to then draw a map with each one of the acreages, used for each of the crops, I believe.
You will notice in the staff report, when you look up his application, he did specifically show where everything is growing. He mapped it out. So if you turn to that particular application, you can see that.
And I read all through that. Now, what got me to wonder was it's going to be a little bit complicated, but still, good luck on it, Kathleen and Rick.
Yeah, he also submitted on the application that he was growing tomatoes and cucumbers.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other question? We have another question.
Speaker? Yeah. Same question I had of others. Do you know what the arrangement was when you went on the PTP pipeline, and did you have wells that were supposed to be destroyed that weren't, or were they all destroyed, the ones that were?
Honestly, no, I don't know the answer to the question. I know that there is a well on the property that has been destroyed.
But you don't know the answer to that question. Okay.
I'm
Great,
not
thank
sure
you.
on that one.
And then okay, thanks. I do have a question for staff. We have these applications have come in, and you said there are 2 others. Are
Yes.
there other ag properties that were on the PTP pipeline that are not coming forward asking for this because they have wells that they are turning to? And are they wells that were supposed to be destroyed and weren't destroyed, and that's why they don't have to come? Does anybody
I
know?
would not have that
That's what-
information.
Anybody know the answer to the question? Okay,
Mike
great.
is one.
Great. All right, good.
Okay.
All right.
Madam
Well,
Chairman.
I have a question before you go, Kathleen. Has any change in the water quality been noticed in the area as to whereabouts these new proposed wells are over the past? You put up hydrographs showing what the water levels were. Has the water quality itself changed? Is seawater intrusion an immediate threat there, or have we seen any degradation, increase in chlorides that this problem may exacerbate?
I would have to go back to the Basin Management Objective Report cards that were presented earlier this year. And the upper aquifer system is in better shape than the lower aquifer system. I can't tell you right offhand exactly. It seems to me inland it was doing okay, but I'm going off my memory, and I'd have to go back to the BMO report cards to look at those, or go back to other records such as the county report on water quality.
And as I read through the applications, each one of the individual applications, it seems that everyone was requesting to go deep, very deep.
One of those things that the board can decide with this is to limit what aquifer they're allowed to pull their water from. That is an option. We put that as possible permit conditions. It's, I think, number 8 on the list.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think he's got an answer.
Just want to clarify one important point. We are not seeking to drill a deep well. The replacement well is very similar depth to our existing well. It's an upper aquifer system well. This is 215.
This is on going out to, could you just identify yourself again, please?
James Dubois with Ryder Brothers.
Thank you. Okay. Mike, would you like to come up? And then after that, to answer the question, I will ask all of those persons who would like to speak in favor of this appeal to come talk to us.
Okay, thank you. Mike Solomon, General Manager, United Water Conservation District. I apologize, I had meant to put a PowerPoint presentation so it was clear up there. Time just didn't allow it. So I'm going to give you a little more history on the PTP and some a little more background that might help you with your decision. Because as I was reading, I've spent the last few days reading through the historical data from the state when the state came to the county and said, we're going to adjudicate if you don't fix the problem, and then the engineering reports and building the PTP. And it was very interesting reading, and one of the thoughts I came out of it, the first thing that hit my head was the comment, those who refuse to learn from history are deemed to repeat it. And I'm going to give you sort of a feel for that. Yeah, all of these folks were farming, irrigating, using upper aquifer wells at that time. At the time, the late 1970s, the belief was that the lower aquifer system, the Fox Canyon, not only was not intruded by seawater, but the fresh water extended well out offshore. So there was about 160 years, I think it said, of fresh water availability. The upper aquifer was the one in trouble. It was being inundated with the seawater intrusion. It was also the problem, the farmers, their wells were starting to have problems, and instead of drilling 62 new wells, the county and United got together and said, let's build this pumping trough pipeline to try to solve the problem and drill the 5 deep aquifer wells that are on there. So one of the things I was thinking of is the comments were here. Yes, they were pumping water before the PTP, but they were also pumping us into trouble at that time, and that's why the state came to us. So it wasn't like there was no harm, no foul happening at that time. We built the pumping trough pipeline because that was a serious problem area, and we don't want to revert back to that problem just because it's convenient now. Now, I want to make sure everybody's clear. I'm very sympathetic. I read all the reports and stuff. I know people are hurting right now, and it's struggling. But we also have to focus on what are we trying to accomplish or not accomplish. And I'm going to give you some details as far as what the state asked us to do and show you how we haven't fulfilled our missions, any of us here at the county. First of all, The pumping trough pipeline, the 5 wells, we are delivering no surface water, obviously, to the PTP, so it's all surface water. And as you saw this, January through June, 96% of the water. We had a little water because of the rain in February and March, but most of it's groundwater. Those 5 wells pretty much will all be shut down by September because they will have reached the depth of the bowls. And in going to our board, yeah, we could lower the bowls, we could drill the wells deeper, but the one thing the state told us all not to do was don't mine the aquifers, and that's mining the aquifers. So we are going to shut our wells down and not do any more at that time. We're accepting the fact that Mother Nature didn't provide enough water. Let's don't mine this. The state in the 1970s made one thing clear: fixing the seawater intrusion problem. That was the key issue because that was being caused by the overdraft of the upper aquifer system. If we didn't fix it, they would. The short-term strategy they asked us that we said we would take so they would get out of our backyard was we would build the permanent Verne-Freeman diversion structure, build the PTP system with these understandings. Surface water would be used to provide all the water, and that lower aquifer water would only be used during dry years. Well, I can tell you one thing, that hasn't been the case up to now. But that's what we told the state we would do. And that's why, going back to some of the discussions we've had in the past, all these credits that have built up, there's no water to back it up. So we haven't done that part. The state also said that we needed to abandon 45 wells that were out there on the system. United and the county, instead of abandoning them, offered to folks, you can keep that well for an emergency purpose or a small domestic use, but that's it. There wasn't while the state said we should replace them all, we gave in a little bit at that time and said, some domestic use or emergency use. I read all the documents last night, and I didn't see where emergency use was the fact that United, GMA, and all the rest of us didn't do our job conserving water over time, and we hit a drought. That's an emergency. I read the emergency as being our system was shut down because of a pipe break or something like that for 24-hour purpose, not lack of taking care of business. And now we're short of water and we've ignored it, and it's an emergency, so let's pump the hell out of the basins and mine them further. The other third step was the GMA would do cutbacks in pumping. And we've had this discussion. Lynn Mahart's discussed this, what the state told us to do. But what people forget is that wasn't the solution that we were supposed to do to solve the overall problem. That was a short-term solution, so we had time to come up with longer-term solutions for the bigger problem. This was just going to keep things sort of held back a little bit until we could solve the problem. The long-term solutions were to bring on 40,000 acre-feet of recycled water by the year 2000. We can't even get 7,000 on now. And that we would increase our imported water, including the 20,000 acre-feet that Ventura County Flood Control District owns. And to date, United's only been bringing in its 3,000 to 5,000 acre-feet a year. These strategies, again, were based on the belief that the lower aquifer system was healthy, extended well out in the ocean, and we had 160 years, so in a dry year, you could use it for a while, and you wouldn't cause any damage because the Freeman diversion surface water would take care of things. That obviously hasn't happened, and the sad thing is we've known for quite a while that wasn't true, and we didn't change our strategies. We just kept going with the same strategy, thinking that nothing was ever going to go bad.
What is true?
Well, you just saw the seawater. I'm sorry.
On the lower aquifer, it doesn't go out. We don't have 160 years supply. It doesn't go out under the ocean.
No, as a matter of fact, you've got about a half a mile to a mile inland of seawater intrusion inland from the coast. It doesn't extend out there with fresh water anymore.
When did we find that out?
Oh, early 1990s, I believe it was.
Early 1990s, we realized that projection was not correct.
Yes,
and we continued the same policy.
Yeah, we didn't go back and say, well, this isn't going to work. We just kept mining the basin. Again, that's where you see, as United provided the surface water and some groundwater, the water kept dropping because we weren't recharging and we were using water, and we weren't putting water back into that system that was being depleted. And the pumping changed. We started increasing our pumping needs. So in effect, we've bought ourselves about 30 years of peace. While the problems worsened, and the drought only emphasizes that we're avoiding managing the district, our district and the area here for the last 30 years. We've been maintaining a lot of data. We've been talking a lot about transferring ag to M&I 2 acre-feet per parcel, but we haven't been managing the problem the state told us to do. And I'm going to give you what they told us we should have done further. It was also pointed out that the concept of safe yield does not work for a coastal community like ours. And I thought that was really interesting. I think we all need to spend time looking at this history. What the state said was safe yield doesn't work in a coastal community because safe yield, some years you're good, some years you're bad, and in those bad years, seawater comes in and they're saying no more seawater intrusion. So you can't use the concept of safe yield to determine how we manage these basins. So we've been going along with a concept, even as we talk it here, what's the safe yield, what's the safe yield? The state's saying safe yield isn't the answer because during those dry years, you're letting seawater intrude. And once it intrudes, it doesn't go back out. We're not pushing it out, folks. Once it's in, and it just keeps creeping in. It doesn't creep out. In fact, when you saw that red earlier, how during the 90 drought, how it was fully red, and now it's partially red, that's not because the seawater wall's backed up. It's just the brackish water is less now because we've diluted it a little bit here, but the seawater wall has actually moved in even further. And by the end of this summer, you're going to see that whole area probably red again because it's slowed down for these last few months because people haven't been irrigating. They've been tearing up their fields, chopping up the dirt and everything, getting it ready for the irrigation that's about to hit us soon in a heavy dosage if we go at it. So you're going to see that red move really quickly. Let's see, the next comment I wanted to make. The state gave us these comments. They said, this is what you have to do, you've got to commit to solve the seawater intrusion problem and what this means. And here's what they said solving seawater intrusion means. It means no long-term mining of the Fox Canyon aquifer. Well, since '79, I would say we've been long-term mining of the Fox Canyon aquifer, so we fail on that. The next thing they said is no further degradation of the Oxnard aquifer, the upper aquifer, after January 1st, 1983, even in dry years or critical years. Fail. I mean, the two F's in a row right there on the two things that we were supposed to be accomplishing. Commitment by the groundwater pumpers to prevent groundwater degradation. I'd say we did okay there. We got people committed to trying to do it as long as it wasn't painful. They were committed to it. And finally, there was a commitment that the Freeman diversion would offset all groundwater extractions. Well, that's not happening either. So 3 of the 4 things that they defined solving seawater intrusion, the state back in '79, 3 of the 4 we get an F. And I would say on the 4th one we get a C or a B, maybe at the best. So a little concerned there. And I don't blame the GMA, I blame United. I look back at these records and I look at our staff said all the right things. They committed to doing the right things. Then it rained and everybody just decided it got comfortable. They didn't want to raise rates. They didn't want to make it uncomfortable for anybody. And then, so there was a period of let's don't raise rates. Then there was a period of raise rates just to catch up with, just so we can operate what we're doing. And now we've done nothing for 30 years. So I blame United. The GMA, certainly, you all and the past board, we haven't followed through with what we told the state we would do. And the things that we committed to, we failed, or the things we did do, we're failing at poorly. I blame all of us for not following through with what we said we would do. We got happy, we built these things, and we walked away from the longer-term problem. And now we're in a crisis where we have a water shortage. I'm not sure a water shortage because of the drought is an emergency. An emergency is more when you have an earthquake and things break. This is something where we just ignored solving the problem or taking care of the problem, and now it hurts and we got to fix it. I'm not going to go on more because I can do that. You know that. I have a lot of ideas of where I think we need to go to get serious about solving these problems and solving them now. I'm concerned when I remind myself that in April, when you approved the emergency ordinance, we committed to let's get on with the long-term solution. We're in July, and I'm really not convinced I see anything happening yet, unless anybody can point to me a direction of where we've got some real solid leads of this is where we're going other than the GREAT program, and because the GREAT program is sputtering. I think if you do approve these wells, and I'm certainly sympathetic to the folks out there, but I also recognize you and United have a commitment to to solve the problem, not make it worse. I would suggest that, because during that period before the PTP, they were pumping up our aquifer wells, and they were causing trouble. I don't think any of those pumpers, even the new ones, should get irrigation index. I think they should just be given the amount of pumping that United provide them over a certain period, say the last 5 years. Not groundwater and surface water, but just the groundwater. If you don't give them all that, if you only do this to the 7, we are going to have a negative impact on the aquifers because we're adding to the pumping. United, prior to this past year, was providing about 75% surface water, 25% groundwater. With irrigation index, it's going to be 100% groundwater for everybody that's out there, even the existing wells. So that's already sending us in a negative place. We got a serious problem going that way. United's guilty of it too. We're about to deal with a $2 million surcharge for pumping our PTP wells last year. We're working on that now. And I was just told this morning from the January to June, you just saw that we pumped the water we delivered to the PTP, instead of slowing down and saying, whoa, 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 we pumped 96% of the water that was being used out there. For just those 6 months, we have a $5 million surcharge. And you know how that's going to be paid for? Credits. Mainly, because that's the folks are going to just say, because up to that point, they can use credits. And those credits are being based on over-mining a basin. Not because we left water in there and we say, okay, we'll take care of it. We're going to use monopoly money to solve this problem. And then if we keep doing this, we're just making the problem worse. I'm glad to answer any questions. I do have a lot of ideas for the way we need to start solving this problem. I'm sympathetic to these farmers that don't. But I would say that if you do allow it, the other farmers that are on the PTP should be limited not to the irrigation index, but just to the percentage of the water we were delivering from groundwater. Otherwise, we are causing further harm to and I would say substantial harm to the aquifers.
All right, any questions?
I have one question. Could you go through your list of ideas to solve it real quickly? I just want to put this in perspective.
Well, my first...
Do your ideas pertain to the matter that we're having a public hearing on specifically, or are they general?
They're general. It's where we need to go forward in future.
I think we need to remain on the topic.
I'd be glad to talk to you. It's really about, it's almost like we have to go back and look at the documents that said this is what we're going to do and say, what are we really trying to accomplish? I mean, since I've been with United, all of the GMAs ever talked about is safe yield. Well, the state says safe yield is not the answer if you're trying to prevent seawater intrusion. So we got to go to some other method.
Any other questions?
I do have one quick one. Mike, maybe over the years I've heard a lot of presentations and we all understand the great good that the Freeman did when it was really working at full capacity. And you said just a minute ago, once you have seawater intrusion, it doesn't go back out. It's in. It's good.
Yes.
And it's not good. My understanding was when that Freeman was really working good and we had a lot of recharge, we actually did push seawater back out. We improved water quality in wells that had been overtaken by saline conditions.
I think if you talk to the groundwater folks, what they were saying is the seawater wall came to here, and then it polluted this water, became very brackish, and once we put more water in, it stopped that wall, but it cleaned up this water here.
It diluted it.
Yes. Yeah. That's my understanding. That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mike, if we were to choose a thing of treat everybody equally bad, and we used allowing some to put a deep aquifer well and a shallow aquifer well, it would blend out the evil. My feeling always resorts back to have everybody on the same playing field and then force everybody to endure the same level of pain. to do that, we have to give these people not a chance just to die in their tracks, but to survive this year, whether that's a good plan or not. My question is, do you feel it's absolutely an original sin to allow them a new well or not?
It's funny, Jeff and I talked about this. This is a policy decision you folks have to make. That's why you get paid the big bucks. What I would say to you from my position, I wouldn't put any more wells in. I think until we solve the problem, we got it. I mean, I just read in the paper, what was it, Central Valley's fallowing. It's easy for me to say, I agree. It's not my income. I get it. 500,000 acres are being fallowed. What we're talking about is, well, I don't want to fallow, so you got to give me water, let me drill a new well. Heck, we're in some of the worst problems in the Central Valley. And we've been told to fix our problem. We haven't. So why are we going to make the problem worse?
But we do have a provision for fallowing land in our program.
That's right. And but that's why I'm saying maybe it's better. While I don't like the idea of maybe they get the wells, but everybody on the PTP feels the same pain. That makes more sense. Otherwise, those that kept their wells, which basically was a bad thing, they kept the bad, but we let them do it. They kept it. They can now do irrigation allowance, which is greater than the groundwater we've been pumping historically for them. So it is going to have a serious problem. And this is the biggest problem area almost on the Oxnard Plain, folks. So.
Okay, we have another question.
Yeah, I asked a question earlier before you came up, and everybody said you were going to be the one to answer that. And that is this issue of, are these the only people that went on the PTP, or are there people that went onto the PTP that were supposed to destroy their wells, that didn't destroy their wells, that now are not coming in front of us because they're now going to turn those wells back?
Yes.
That was the question you came up to answer.
And I thought I did. Roughly at that time, I think there were like 47 wells, and there was something about 2 wells, leave them alone, but 45 of them the state said you need to get rid of. They're a problem. For whatever reason, and I didn't have time to get up through that, the county and United at that time, because the county was the lead with United at that time, dealing with this, they agreed. They said, if you want a turnout on our PTP, you have to abandon your well, or we'll abandon it for you, or you can keep it for emergency use. And those that kept it, yes, are going to be the ones that aren't before you and are going to pump irrigation index allowance now and not come before you.
But do you know how many were on it?
Now or at the time?
Now, like
We have 62 turnouts at this point right
62
now.
turnouts.
We have 62.
I think more relevant would be that before you started the
amount of
PTP,
parcels.
how many total wells were in the area affected and were told to turn
Well,
off?
wait, let's go back to
Okay.
the supervisor's question.
Yeah. Well,
He
it's
asked
sort
how
of-
many were on it, and how many of those had wells that they're now using. Is that what you asked?
Well, again, just my memory of this reading over the weekend, about 47 wells existed. 45 were supposed to be gotten rid of. You're only having 7 people come before you, so it doesn't take long to do the math. We're well over 30 or 40 wells are out there. They're going to be pumped that didn't go away.
You think there's 30 or 40 wells?
It could be.
There's probably somewhere north of 30 wells that didn't get shut off, that were supposed to be shut off, that are going to be turned back on. Is that?
A little less, but it's not far from there. I can get you the exact number.
Okay, but somewhere
and
north.
to clarify,
You guys might know.
We don't know, but something for your consideration is that it's likely that they wouldn't have meters either.
Yeah.
Now that comes up, just because they are de minimis.
Just want to complicate this
Wait,
issue
what?
more.
Okay, we need to get on with this public hearing.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they have meters?
De minimis use.
Huh?
The de minimis use argument,
minimis
but we'll
use
have
at
to do
that
the
time,
research
yes.
on it.
So they're not reporting?
It might not be.
There's a possibility, so I want your board to be aware of that.
Okay.
Tightly run.
well, and to clarify too, I think these wells that may still be out there and operational may have been allowed to remain. It's not that they weren't abandoned, that they didn't follow instructions perhaps, is that they were allowed to remain in a modified use situation.
Right.
So
Okay.
I just wouldn't have cleared that.
But they were supposed to be abandoned.
No, not supposed to be
Well, the
demanded
state
because
said
some
they wanted them
were allowed to
abandoned.
remain
For
as
whatever
backups.
reason, the county and United said you could keep them for
But the state,
domestic or
the
emergency
state
use.
assumed they were going to be abandoned.
Yes,
Right.
that's my reading of the
And they
document.
weren't required to be abandoned.
Well, Mike said the state wanted 45 abandoned, and then when the county and United were building the PTP, it was some backup wells were allowed to remain. So it wasn't that they didn't follow instructions. Those people had those ones
Okay.
remain.
Oh, absolutely.
I would like
United
to-
and the county gave them that option versus saying you will do it. Absolutely.
I'm going to put an end to this one and ask for other people who would like to support this.
Thank you,
Who
Mike.
have not spoken? Okay. Anybody who's opposed to it? Okay.
How did I know?
I'll ask you to state your name for the record, please.
Jason Weiner with Rich Toyo Foundation. We're not here to provide a preference for one groundwater pumper over another who's had historical farm or property on the area. It's clear that this agency needs to be reformed and there needs to be conjunctive surface and groundwater management. Our position is that the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency must develop a safe field for the Oxnard Plain aquifers that are protective of the Santa Clara River. They're also protective of not only the groundwater resources, but of the Santa Clara River's public trust resources. And that also this agency must prevent withdrawals in excess of that safe field. And the safe field does need, like Mr. Solomon said, the safe field does need to be adjustable. It needs to account for variations in precipitation annually. One way maybe around that is to build a big reservoir in the Santa Clara River Plain or a series of, in the Oxnard Plain or a series of reservoirs to store those big flows when we have them, like the flood of 1969. If we could capture a percentage of that, we can buffer ourselves during times of drought. So we don't support approval or permitting of withdrawals in excess of the safe field, right? We just don't support that, and we don't feel it's sustainable or appropriate management. We do feel that the agency should be asking some questions. Among those questions is that, for instance, is there enough groundwater in the plain to allow extraction of 2.3 or 2.5 acre feet per acre of water, or any amount of water over 2.3 or 2.5 acre feet of water for strawberries or raspberries, respectively. We need to start asking those sorts of questions when we're approving and allowing groundwater use. We need to manage our groundwater sustainably. And it doesn't appear that these growers are asserting that they're asking for this, but any decision this agency makes today also should not support allowed water users to avoid implementation of best available efficiency or conservation measures by being able water efficiency conservation or water efficiency conservation measures by being able to take a combination of both groundwater and surface water, which would be more than a user can take from groundwater alone that would be protective of the safe field. So those are our comments. We need change here.
Any questions?
I have one question. You had said not in excess of safe yield. What is your definition of safe yield? I mean, what amount is safe yield? Do you have one?
So we feel that, like previously stated in other meetings, we feel that the safe yield model needs to be developed with stakeholder input, not behind closed doors behind one agency, and it needs to be adjustable by the amount of precipitation, and there needs to be long-term solutions to recharge those aquifers, like reservoirs, for instance, and high flow diversion solutions and infiltration.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there an appellant's rebuttal to anything that's been said?
Excuse me, before we do
Okay.
rebuttal, I have one more question.
Sure.
So I
We
guess
have
it's
one
a
more question.
Yeah, I have one more question. It's for a combination of staff and Mike Solomon. So Mike, if you could come on up. We have this issue of, thank you, Kathleen. You may have this. It's sort of like who has this information that I'm looking for, and that is that, you set up the PTP pipeline for that area of Oxnard because of the issues with the state and the saltwater intrusion and trying to do that. Is there a reason why that went where it did? And for example, PV was not included in that. I mean, PV's also has these same issues, or I think they have the same issues.
The
Is there a
PV
reason Pleasant Valley was not
The
included?
Pleasant Valley Pipeline was already built. It was built in 1955 and was out there and had reservoirs getting surface water already at that time. The PTP was just added because the pumping in that area was creating, why it's called pumping trough, it was creating basically almost like a vortex. It was sucking.
So it was created over the sort of the worst part of the
That's
depression?
correct.
Thank you.
That's correct.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay. Yes, please.
Christian Halstead with Fukutomi Farms again. I'd just like to say, Mike, I appreciate the daunting task that you have in front of you, Mike Solomon, and I have a lot of respect for you and a lot of respect for what you are dealing with, and I know that this is a big issue, and I appreciate that we have you out there trying to do what you can to protect the aquifers, and that's not, and I do appreciate that a lot. I'd like to say that when you guys were passing Ordinance E, part of Ordinance E was that we were going to share the burden, that all of us were going to do our part to try to conserve water together, and that we were going to share the burden. And I feel that we as the PTP users have kind of taken on more than our share of the burden in times past before as well. Everyone keeps using the analogy of that there's a lifeboat and there's not enough seats on the lifeboat for everybody. And I feel like the PTP users have time and time again been those who have been the ones to jump off the lifeboat to save everybody else. We had to destroy our wells so we could use the PTP. We're going along trying to do our part, and those of us who did destroy our wells are kind of feeling punished now that we didn't just keep them around, that we didn't keep those wells around, and that we did go solely on the PTP as they had really intended for us to do, and pay more for that water as well than just regular groundwater extractions. And we're kind of feeling punished now for doing the right thing at this point. And when you had passed Ordinance E, you had said, this should be equal amongst everybody, and that we should be reaching to try to hit this 20 to 25% cutback. Well, for the PTP users, at the end of August, we're going to have a 100% cutback, 100%, and then that's it for us. And we want to help to do our part to conserve water. We want, like I said, before the ordinance even happened, we were cutting back 21.7%. That was without you guys even saying to do anything. That was just on our own accords. Now we would love to cut back even more. We would love to cut back even more, but to slit our throats, to not even give us a chance. And Mike, we'd love to support your projects, the United's projects for water conservation, and we would love to continue to support those projects in the future. Funding, whatever, cooperation, we would love to cooperate, but you got to give us a chance to cooperate. If we're not around anymore, then we can't help fund these projects for water conservation or water storage in the future. This is more than just water for people. It's people's lives. We have people who have worked for us since 1963. That's a long time. It's a long time. These are people's livelihoods. This is our livelihood. It's not just water. And we understand that a lot has to be done, and we want to make changes. I know that, not making the right choices in the past doesn't constitute an emergency, but I would say that we are in an emergency. The governor of the state would say that we are in a state of emergency. And so I think that to give us an emergency well that we will go back off once the PTP is up and running again is the right choice there. And I just can't see slitting our throats when we've jumped out of the lifeboats again and again. To ask us to jump out of the lifeboat again on this one, I think would be onerous, would be too much, would be asking us to do more than those peers around us when we're willing to make changes, and we're making hard choices. We're going to cut back on acreage to reach that IAI. That's a tough choice for us. And anyway, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mike Chandy, E&H Land Company, Chandy Farms. That was well said. Obviously, I just, in response to the gentleman from United Water, I just don't see any part of fairness here, to the landowners who did what was asked of them, destroyed their wells, and now what, we're to pay the penalty? Our workers are to pay the penalty? Our vendors are to pay the penalty? And we're supposed to just, have the Dust Bowl out there. I mean, I just don't see any type of fairness. I mean, it seems like eminent domain without being paid. I don't see any way how we can go to the PTP users and say, okay, since you didn't hold on to your well and you did what we asked, now you should be punished. For the people that work for me, for myself, I have no idea how that, I don't know, legal. Obviously it's legal, we're here, but I just don't see any sense of fairness in that whatsoever. Thank you.
Could I ask you, sir, excuse me, sir?
I have a question.
Are you 210 and 211?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Eric Ryder with Ryder Brothers. And I just wanted to comment on the emergency as well. If you read what Mike's talking about, it's a sustained period of interruption for 24 hours. It doesn't say anything about a pipeline breaking or anything such as that. We've been working since March time period, a little bit before that, on creating something that's equitable for everyone. And we all agreed to reduce our usage of water by 25%. And that's going to hurt. It's not an easy thing to do. We're actually fallowing 200 acres in Oxnard Plain due to this situation. We've got micro sprinklers going in. We have monitoring systems that James referred to. It's not like nothing's happening here to try and alleviate the situation. And so what Mike Shandy was talking about is that we should do something that's fair. And we're putting excess burden on those along the PTP, which isn't equitable for the entire group that's farming in the Fox Canyon area. And so I just would caution you guys from making a decision that goes beyond what everyone's already signed up to do and is committed to do and will hurt, and also that we really think about what's fair for everyone here, because this group alone is going to take it hard compared to the rest of everyone else. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak in as a rebuttal to what's already been said? That's where we are in the agenda right now.
I was just going to give a response. We got an answer.
Okay, we're coming up to that, but right now, is there anybody else who would like to this is one of the appellants who'd like to speak. Okay. So now we are down to rebuttals and closing statements by staff. And Mike, you made a presentation along with staff, so yours and also from the attorney.
We got a hold of staff, and they said about 30% of the wells roughly that were out there at the time are still active. There were some folks from the 80s, I'm sorry, when the PTV was built, so about 30% of them are still there. And there were some holes in the grounds, but they didn't have motors and others on some. So we don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing it sounds like more like 20 wells or so that are out there. And the other thing, just on the gentleman, I do want all of them to know I don't come up here because I want to see people hurt or go out of business. I'm more concerned that we're draining our savings account so low, especially with the ESA and the other things. And when Jason Weiner comes up and says those high flows are what are going to be just to keep us sort of still below safe yield, if you will. There's not that much water anymore for us to deal with. There's nobody going to let us build a big reservoir out on the Oxnard Plain, a big dam. So there's no easy answer. There's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be all expensive stuff. So the only thing I would add to my recommendation, and that everybody feel the pain, at least on the PTP, is anybody that does get a well permit, as one of the gentlemen said, that once the drought is over and things sort of get back to normal and the PTP is operating, they have to go back on the PTP and use surface water. That would be the one add I would do to that. I think that's a pretty good compromise also. Thank you.
Okay, Kathleen?
The board has the option when they if they should approve these applications and grant permits, you can put limits or conditions on the permit your permit conditions, and you can specify what aquifer. You can also specify that these are emergency standby wells, and that as soon as the PTP is up and running, they go back on.
Okay, thank you. Let us ask our attorney if he has anything to add for us before we start considerations.
Only to remind the board that...
I'm sorry, Al, we can't hear you.
Only to remind the board that you have the discretion to approve the applications based on a finding that granting them will result in no net detriment, and that would be based on a determination, alternatively, either that they will result in no material degradation of water quality or will not materially diminish recharge to the aquifer.
Okay.
Just to emphasize, either finding or determination would support the no detriment determination.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up. I know it was...
Excuse me, either or both? We have to make both findings?
By making either determination. So
it was thrown out, and I just want to remind you, we're not talking about all the farmers who were on the PTP, but only 7 today. We can deal with other things at a different time. Okay, I'll open it up for board discussion. Don't everybody jump in at once.
I met with a lot of people, as did our exec officer, trying to put together what seemed to be a fair and equitable program, and I would continue to like to see that work to its completion, if that includes going down to 50% or less, but that at least we put the bite on everybody at the same moment in time to the same degree. And people who are trying to do debt service and stuff, I think to arbitrarily pick out a group just because they screwed up or we screwed up, I don't see any fairness in that. But I do agree that we need to pinch a tiny bit on everybody. And there's some articles that I brought it to the attention of the LPUG this morning. Davis has published a good article this last week that really the entire state is going to have to go to fallowing stuff, not just with 500,000 acres, but maybe 1.5 million, and only to total yield from the state. And if that's the case, then we're going to need to ultimately share in that, because we're not going to be able to reach out and get non-native water very accessible in the future. It's going to be not available to us, and for that reason, we may well need to fallow some land. To that end, my last picking, I went through and I graded trees. I'm going to push some trees and try to see if I can reduce my use by just pushing some trees. And I think that that's an opportunity that we should maintain, and at a future date, I need to bring it to all of our attention. The more I follow the weather blogs, we may be in this for another year or 2 or 3. If people are good enough to fallow their land, they should inherit that right to do it again for another couple years. But that's another day's discussion. But for right now, I'm all for allowing these people to have their wells, let them pump it to stay even. They're going to have to endure, in my world, they're going to have to endure the same cutbacks as everybody else. So everybody else gets squeezed, just like I'm going to get squeezed and they're going to get squeezed. We all get squeezed the same amount. And I just think that's the only fair and equitable way to have it. Thank you.
Okay.
Robert?
Boy, I'm sure glad this is my first meeting.
Well, we saved it for you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so being on United and listening to the PTP and what staff has been talking about over the past year and a half out there, and then dealing with these issues in the Las Posas Basin and how this all comes back around, I got to go back to a couple baseline things as to where I see this organization. One, what is our mission and where's our statement? And as Mike had pointed out, we've failed. It might have been a great organization, we might have accomplished a lot of things, but we're not meeting what the hell we're supposed to be doing, and that's a problem. Second of all, the idea of allowing them to have wells, and when the PTP system comes back up, they turn those wells off. Well, there's a problem with that, and it's called the priority matrix that United passed recently. placing water in the PTP system as a number 4 priority. First, we're going to take care of the forebay for health and safety reasons, and also because of the seawater intrusion issue. That's the reservoir that pushes that, or at least holds that back. The second part of it is we have a contract commitment to Pleasant Valley Mutual, or Pleasant Valley County, that we have to meet. Third one then is over to El Rio. And then if there's any water left over after the environmental concerns and what Jason's talking about and what we have to face real time, then we can put it into the PTP. Your 10 to 12,000 acre feet a year that you got before is not going to be there. It just isn't in the math anymore. It's a different world. So I don't think that given a set of well permits now, betting on the fact that it may change next year or the year after and suddenly the PTP system is going to be running the same way is realistic. I don't think so. On the other side of it, I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't want to see you guys get cut. You did nothing wrong. The system let you down. We let you down in allowing you to grow crops that are unsustainable. What we need to try and do, and I don't know how to go about doing it, is I think the entire PTP system, all 62 turnouts need to be equaled. And I don't think we can do that today, but I think all of you over there in the PTP system, because you're all part of that system, need to have a cut in what you're allowed based upon the historical amount of groundwater that was provided. And then I can see giving you your wells, because I think there's enough gains from the others in order to support what you need. But to come in here and what I see in front of me is a proposed increase in groundwater from every one of you over what the groundwater that you've been receiving before, I not only see that a harm to the basin, I see it going backwards and exacerbating the problem. And that we're just compounding mistake upon mistake upon mistake that the agency has done. So I'm a bit of a hardliner here. I'm going to tell you straight up, my preferred option is number 1, deny it, because it's a reality. The weather system created this. Option number 2 would be a fallback position to me, but only if we can get every other PTP turnout out there to get on the same page and to be all you grouped together. You live and die by your system and what can be done and what can be provided to you. And maybe that falls under option 5. And like I said, I don't know that we can consider that today or where we can work with that, but at that point, I'm just going to wait at this point.
Well, since you asked if we could consider that under option 5, I'm going to ask our attorney, is it possible to consider other properties other than the 7 here today?
Well, what you can do is impose any conditions on your approval that the board deems appropriate, and if the board considers linking these approvals to water use on other parcels, then that certainly could be included in the approval. I'm not sure you have enough information on which to do that, but it's a possibility.
So if I could repeat that, you're saying that a condition could be, if what Rob was saying is that the wells would only become approved if these other PTP turnouts eventually, at an appropriate action of Fox Canyon, had similar restrictions.
Correct. The only difficulty I see in that is one of timing. The applicants have represented that they need a decision today, and if it's...
I realize that, but that is a legal condition, you're saying.
Right.
But we could not put restraints on other properties if the property owners were not notified.
Not today, yeah, we couldn't do
today.
that today.
No, but the approval that you granted would be conditional on getting approval from those property owners.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make these comments because I'd like to hear from my colleagues about this. As everybody, I think, experiences as you read this, this has not been an easy one where it's clear to say what's the good government answer. usually you kind of go, this is going to be hard, somebody's not going to be happy, but you kind of, at your gut, you go, I know what a good government answer is. I have to tell you, this maybe in all of my years doing it, this is the hardest one for me to go, well, what is the right thing to do? You know, issues of fairness, issues of, so I'm going to try to outline what are just the 3 or 4 major things, because I'd love to hear what people's thoughts are. I very much appreciate what you just said, which basically is, you know, the agency has failed with its fundamental mission because we have not said, hey, our number one goal is to stop saltwater intrusion, which is the permanent deterioration or destruction of a very precious resource for Ventura County. And we haven't taken a strong stand on that. And the only way you take a strong stand is a whole lot of people probably are unhappy. And it's just difficult in the political world to make people unhappy. And it's really easy to say, oh gosh, we got this great, PTP solution, and it means we don't have to make hard decisions. And so I appreciate and respect just what you said about that. And there's certainly a significant part of me that says, I don't want to be part of the problem by not doing that. I also appreciate exactly what you said. I'm going, what is the best way to solve this problem? Well, one is today's hearing is probably good for us in that it reminds us we have, this isn't just, we're going to, kick this around, we got emergency E and, we have long-term, big, and very difficult decisions ahead of us. I mean, gut-wrenching decisions. And it hasn't felt gut-wrenching, quite frankly, up till today, I think, for people. But it's people, at least, going on to a different kind of farming that will cause economic hardship. Maybe it's farming that has more variability built into it, but it'll be really difficult. So what's the best way to get there? The idea that I think has been somewhat attractive to me is that first thing we needed to do was kind of get everybody into the boat together and then say we're all going to, we're all going to take fewer rations, and I recognize I'm not a farmer, but municipal people, people in the cities that I represent are going to be, suffering from this also. But get everybody together, and it's easier for everybody to say, hey, we can go along with this, we can do it because we're all going to suffer. So if we could find a way to have everybody take 25% cuts, and then we have to ask ourselves, is that enough? So it's not at all clear that that's enough. I think there's no question in my mind, just what we've done with irrigation efficiency is not going to get it done. We're going to come 6 months down the road and go, we're not there. We are at over 150,000 acre feet were pumped out of the aquifer. We actually are going the wrong direction. We're increasing. Just not sustainable. So do we do something short term to pull some more people in so everybody's together and then do the hard cut? Or do we, at this juncture, begin something difficult? I'm open to hearing sort of both sides of that equation, in terms of that, and I'd love to hear from my colleagues, as we go forward. I have some thoughts, but that's what I'd like to get out there for right now, because I'm still trying to say what's the right way to go forward to get to that right long-term solution.
Well, and you're right, Director Bennett. This is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? A couple of facts just kind of kept sticking in my mind reading through the packet and thinking about the staff report. Number one, I don't think that we can say, one, these wells will affect water quality or would be detrimental to recharge. So I think we can answer both of those questions that will do neither. On the other hand, new wells are part of the problem. It's the wrong direction. And the trouble is we got a group of people who, they've happened to farm in an area where we had a depression, and maybe there was a lot of pumping or geology was such, for whatever reason, there's depression. The problem was figured out. To solve that problem, we built a pipeline and sent some surface water and came up with a solution. And it was a great solution. We built the Freeman, and we were recharging water. And again, great solutions, but in terms of drought and other types of limitations on projects, we've ended up short. The folks who own those properties or who are leasing those properties agreed to do the right thing and went on to the PTP, either by somewhat of a heavy hand from the county or whatnot. But anyway, they did the right thing. And my issue here is that we seem to, as the one gentleman said, we seem to be requiring the PTP users to be doing more than the other ag users on the plain. And I'm feeling strongly that Dr. Kelly's idea of all of that, the pain being shared equally, makes a lot of sense. We're not in a good direction, and we're still not going in a good direction. But to just pick option one and cut a group of people off because their pipeline has gone dry, and it's not that there's no more water in the ground, it's that United, for good reasons, has decided they're not going to drop their bowls and continue pumping those wells. Those are solid, sound reasons, and they've got statutory requirements to protect the aquifer. But it seems to me that if we're going to let some ag pumpers pump on the Oxnard Plain, we probably should let all ag pumpers pump on the Oxnard Plain. How can we make that distinction? I think that if you spread that pain over all pumpers, I mean, at some point, we're going to have to get, we may have further cutbacks. I think everybody understands that. And I think that's something we're going to be grappling with in a few short months. We'll begin to realize where we're at. But it seems inherently unfair. It's not penalizing the PTP users, but it's a different treatment. We've allowed an accommodation, the Irrigation Allowance Index, for the other agricultural pumpers in the Oxnard Plain. And we're not going to give the same benefit to these folks, simply by means of their location and their facilities. It just seems unfair on the surface of it. Again, we look at water level maps nearly every meeting. We see declining water levels, and it comes to me that they show a very bad trend. We've been in a worse place. I'm not saying let's go back there, that that's an okay place to go, but we have come back, and it is a different world. There are other constraints on the Freeman diversion and things that are limiting what we can recharge. But, you know, it does rain too. Sometimes when we don't expect it to. So I just think that we have to have a longer term vision than yeah, we've got this declining water levels, we've got a situation of an extended drought. It may extend a few more years. We're all going to have to ratchet it down to accommodate the new world. But I think we have to accommodate it in a group fashion together.
So,
Can I ask two questions? Yeah. And it's not to challenge you; it's to help my thinking.
Yeah.
But by asking the question and hearing your answer, again, it's not. You made the statement. You said you don't think that these 7 wells would deteriorate water quality, but wouldn't they contribute some to saltwater intrusion?
Well, we didn't get a definitive answer from Kathleen, but she indicated that, and correct me if I'm wrong, she probably doesn't want to get held to this fact, but they're located in a place that isn't, at this point in time, going to be so detrimental to our situation that we have, how do I phrase it? Over time, I think yes. It's detrimental to water quality. Immediately, in terms of some property owners being able to sustain their businesses. In terms of fair treatment, I think we have to kind of accept that gray area.
My other question, and I appreciate the answer. My other question is, and this, I'm going to expand this to staff also, and anybody else that I think could. Is there a difference if you have a farm in the PTP trough area? Do people know, hey, you're buying land in the PTP trough area? That's an area that had more serious water problems in the past, and therefore, you know, you're taking a different level of risk than somebody who's buying land someplace else that's outside of the PTP. Is that a? It's a genuine question, and I'm not prejudging the answer.
Is that a required disclosure? Is what you're asking?
Well, more is it a reality that is considered when it comes to both land values and agricultural decisions? And do people say, you know, I want to be in sustainable farming for a long time? PTP is the area where, at least I understand, had the most serious trough or a serious trough, and they came up with PTP because of that trough to stop the pumping in that area. Does that then, if that is something that is a reality that should have been considered, is it something that we conversely should be considering here? And that is approving new wells out of the interest of fairness in one area may be different than approving new wells for the same interest of fairness, but in an area that has a trough to it.
I think that problem is somewhat through the whole Fox, because on the outcrop area and stuff, I've seen the same thing where people are where there was no deed restrictions filed or any other filing in the recorder's office. So, and as the quality of title companies has degraded, the level of reports has gotten worse and worse, and I think Zone can attribute to that the nonsense we went through over some stuff that had been totally lost, you know, since the 20s. So that really is an absolute fact, and I doubt, Kathleen, do you have any idea, was a deed restriction or any other filing done with the recorder's office that these people were supposed to cover their wall? Yeah, I think a purchaser of property here probably had no idea.
But that would be due diligence, is checking out water history and all that.
Well, if they get
And I don't know how to
credit, it's
answer
one
that
of the
question
checklists right on
myself.
farm credit.
Pardon?
I don't know how to answer that question myself. I don't know the answer, but I would suspect that that's very well known now, just in the world of people looking at ag property, that there's probably areas that are maybe less attractive than others. But in 2010, 2007, I would suspect that things were going full speed and no indication of a problem. I'm making suppositions here. I don't know.
Director Bennett asked a question in regards to water quality, and I have a slightly different take on that. All these properties and all these permits are in the area of the PTP whereabouts existing PTP deep wells exist. So if they are permitted to draw the same amount of groundwater as the groundwater that's been delivered to them, it's a net zero. So I don't know that it would lead to a degradation of water quality, because you're not taking out any greater amount of water than what has historically been presented to them in groundwater already delivery from the wells right around them in the PTP system. So in that regards, your statement about the two findings, or either one of them that we can find as to whether it's a net detriment or whether it impacts recharge, I agree with you. I don't think any of these wells fall into those categories as a reason why they should be not permitted and not allowed to go forward. I go back to a larger mission statement and what are we trying to accomplish here, and if we can get to a larger group to participate, that we can get enough savings from that to allow these permits to go forward without exacerbating the situation that we already have.
Well, and you make an interesting point that I guess trying to say, but maybe not so clearly last time, was that when you have more participants in the reduction program, then perhaps those savings are spread out among the group, and equally shared and perhaps more achievable.
If I could ask, I'm not, you said if they're just taking what was taken last year, then it wouldn't be a net detriment, right? If you're saying if it's just zero out. Did I hear you right when you said that?
In staff's table number 1 here, the fourth column over, they have a number that combines with the amount of groundwater that was supplied by United, and then also what was pumped from their own wells on their property there.
Right.
So that is groundwater deliveries that was prevented. I'm sorry, the third column over.
Right.
Okay.
That is the amount of groundwater that was supplied to them. If the PTP system goes down and we allow a permit to go forward with that same amount, then it's a net zero. We're not increasing the demand in the system. That is historically the amount of groundwater blend or groundwater that's been provided to them.
But I guess that would assume that the past withdrawals were not causing saltwater intrusion problem. And we're at 157,000 acre feet.
Agreed. That goes back to our mission
Our
statement,
basic
and we're
mission.
failing on that.
So let me ask this.
Staying where we are would be like you're still sinking.
Let me ask this
Or
right
taking
now.
out
Are we
water.
finished with information gathering and we're ready to just have discussion?
I thought we were.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing because I hadn't, because I thought you might still be wanting more information.
Yeah, my goodness.
So at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing and we're now in full
She's great at
deliberation.
this. Right.
Okay, so
We're not,
continue.
we're
I'm
not
sorry.
going to beat Lynn Mulhart at this rate either, the total.
No, and I do want you to know, I think this is very important for these people, and I plan to stay as long as it takes, and I'll miss my other meeting,
Now it's getting real.
the city council meeting.
So what are your thoughts? Charlotte?
I agree with things that every single one of you have said. I agree with Robert that we really need to get going on what we were set up to do and stop some of the things that I always thought were games that were set up to allow people to continue what they were doing, and we'll just say it works. I agree that with you that the more people you bring in, the easier it is on everybody, and you can cut and cut. I don't think it's fair to just say no and deny these, and yet if they get as much water as they've asked for, we are going to have more pumped than has been in the past. So as you can see, I'm on all sides of the fence, but to answer a question that you ask, I think it's better to bring more people into the fold and then squeeze down on everybody. And I don't know how we're going to do that if we're simply talking about the other 62 people, or the other, what does that come out, 55 people. I don't know how we'll get it to them unless those wells that were used for emergency use only have not been metered. I think we can place restrictions on them that way, especially if they weren't metered. I don't know, but anyway, you got my idea here.
Could I'd like to ask a question, and then with that answer propose at least something for us to consider, if I could, and that is, do a majority of the board members here support the concept of tying these 7 applicants to the other PTP people, since they're all in a trough and they're all, in a sense, they all getting the same cut? So in other words, if we're saying these 7 have to take a cut that everybody else, but a concern that I would have is that we say yes here, but we don't, because if this is hard, what do you think it's going to be with 62, PTP customers, right? And we say to all of them, we're going to treat you differently than the IA people, I mean, that's going to be good. So do we, I would like to have some assurance if we were going to put everybody in the boat and then do the cuts, that we're actually putting them in the boat and we're going to do that, you know what I mean, as we go forward. So my question is, if if that's a route that we would want to go, and I guess if somebody says it's not, but I've seen it a little bit.
Let me just say that I think that doing that means we're going to have another meeting on this. We don't have another regular meeting scheduled until September.
No, we have an August meeting.
Well, that's a special meeting.
Oh.
We have 2 August meetings, so, August 15th.
Oh, that,
right.
Okay, we have 2.
Is that advertisable time?
Pardon me?
Is there enough lead time on the advertisement?
For a public hearing, is that 45
I
days?
believe so, yes.
45 days.
That's 15 days.
Well, you would, I assume you would be continuing this hearing to...
Well,
Well,
we
if
may
we're
be
gonna-
agendizing something else also, right?
There's some urgency, though, as was indicated in the apps, in that,
That's where I was going
their
with
whole
it.
process.
That's where I was going with that.
I realize there's urgency out there, and so in terms of doing it. But this was the idea that I had. I'm going to assume that there was at least a reasonably positive answer to trying to say, let's treat them all the same.
The issue of surface water delivery, through the PTP, as Robert said earlier, isn't exactly the same thing, but the analogus is it's delivered through the Hueneme pipeline, surface water, and delivered over there. So singling this group out, maybe to be treated differently than Pleasant Valley with the Hueneme line, I don't think is appropriate, because all those people should come under the same flag. So.
But the idea of trying to pull them together is something you're supportive of.
Well, but the more people we pull together to have the same exact rules, the easier they are to enforce.
Sure.
And I think this question about wells and how many and where they are, we're already in the process of attempting to locate those wells in the Las Posas.
Right.
And they're well on the way of that project, and it seems to be not encountering shotguns and militiamen. So I think that if we can move it later to the plains, we might find some interesting facts.
This is just the idea that I would throw out there. I appreciate that these applicants have come forward and said, this is urgent, we need to get a decision. At the same time, I think we all recognize there's going to be a lot of pain. There is pain in delay, but that might be better pain than in just saying no, nothing. I need to get over a certain threshold in my mind, just thinking about this, to say yes. Right. I am willing to say yes if we can achieve the one goal, which is a greater sense of we're all in this and now we're all going to really cut. But I need to get that, and that means to have, this has been a very important, valuable discussion. We should do it again. I know they suffer economically, but they suffer economically no matter what.
I almost wish we could bring down some of the weather persons who are in the long range. I read their blogs every day, and this thing has changed from March till now dramatically. But there are prognosticators. This is going to go on for another 3 years here, the way it's laying up. Jay Lund is one who's really saying that. And if that's the case, we need as many people under the same umbrella so that we can handle them all. And if there's any comfort you should have, is the more we get that group organized, so then we can affect all of them at once.
I don't know whether we can craft the right motion to have staff bring back an agendized item that would give us more confidence that, what we're doing with the other PTP people. But I'd throw that out there as a way for us to deal with what I think we're genuinely wrestling with this, which we see the benefits of both sides. We see the benefits of saying no, we can't. We have to draw a line someplace. Somebody's got to start. There's got to start to be pain, and saying yes, but not being certain that we actually are putting everybody in the same boat as we do that. So
It seems like you're searching for a broader policy that would address all folks who might want to come to us with the PTP users, and if it were a yes, we've been told we can put conditions. If it's, for example, in the upper aquifer system where the experts think they ought to have those wells, we can certainly require that, and we can require them all be on the IAI system. I think that's the same boat we're all talking about. If all of ag is using that as their allocation method, that allocation method can be continually ratcheted down as necessary until we get to that point that we're meeting that safe yield number. I think it's pretty well understood out there in the farm community that there's just only so much water in the ground, and then we get to a point where we decide what is safe to pull out, and then we have to figure out supply projects after that.
My own sense is, if we say yes to these wells and put them on IA, the irrigation efficiency, that doesn't feel like enough, then that, although yes, they're being treated the same, I would think it'd have to be less than that, and then everybody else realizes they're going to catch up with these gentlemen.
I think the levels that we reached are marginal for maintaining a crop even, which is why I pled so much to have the fallow land provision in there. Because if you can't produce a crop with the agreed amount right now, and you have to fallow some land to do it, I think that's a pretty hard pinch. And I really don't agree with you that they're not being treated toughly. I think all of us have to look at a lot tighter restriction. There was a part in this that said that in the United thing there was 6 acre feet, if you remember. That was a limit. Wasn't there 6 or 5 acre feet? And it was in today's thing. Somewhere I read that. I mean, that was the numbers they were thinking in the old days. We're looking more at 4 and maybe 3, and maybe let's go to 1 and see what the hell happens. But we're definitely going to have to do something.
We heard a few of the strawberry growers say 2.3 today.
So.
And so my understanding is that there are some right at that, teetering edge with that quantity. And there's probably going to be some fallowing. And I think even the fallowing concept is something that people understand out there. But to just say no more water for this group, that seems unfair. And it also seems unfair to say that, well, if you're not in the PTP area, you can report this way. But if you're just so unlucky to have property in the PTP area, you have a different application source. It ought to be the same.
Myself, kind of what I'm thinking about here is that on the micro PTP, on the macro across the Oxnard Plain, in order to involve the group. But just going along with the idea that allow the permits to go on the IA, well then, just running the numbers here as to what's presented to us, that's not only an increase in groundwater pumping, but it's an increase by almost 4 times the amount of groundwater that was delivered to them. And that really sticks bad in my craw. It just really smacks that we're just plain advocating what it is we're supposed to be doing.
For 2 of them, it's more than
Is
they
that the case
used
on
in
all
the
of them?
last
It
5
didn't
year
seem like that
average.
was uniform.
I'm sorry?
It didn't seem like that was uniform. Is that the case on all of them, or?
Well, I'm just talking about these 7 right here as to what is under option number 3. That adds up to 1,550 acre feet. And then what was provided, the greatest annual groundwater surface delivery is 1,500 acre feet. So you're allowing even more water to be extracted than what was cumulatively delivered in surface and groundwater.
The first and the last ones are greater than they even ask for.
And so just to release on an IA
Greater than they used.
is really going the wrong way and a problem for me.
Which gives us good incentive to tighten the IA. For everybody.
Sure, and that kind of thing, if we were doing that, I'd feel more comfortable saying yes.
Well, this
And
is going
that's-
to come before us here in a few days, is it not? We're supposed to review this nearing the 1st of August. That was the original presentation Chairman Mulhart made, was that we were going to look at this again as we begin to see it implemented.
You won't have any numbers.
I don't think we won't have any numbers until
None of
February.
that is reported.
We get the final reports in January, in December filing, that's correct. But to find out how it was working and who was compliant, who wasn't, there was supposed to be a
How do we know that?
touchy-feely meeting.
So what I see as the dilemma is, for example, you might be saying you'd support these with them being IA. I see others saying definitely would not support these as IA. And I think the two of us certainly be in that category. And to try to figure out what are the conditions that will become acceptable to approve these 7 is beyond our capacity today, and to have us feel like we really have thought it through and we're making good policy. So there's economic hardship involved, but there will be economic hardship involved no matter what. And I would say our next meeting, we could probably do this better, and we may be able to agendize sort of another conversation about pulling, for example, you said that's not just not just the PTP, but PV, other similar people that are in that. Maybe we pull all of them in and say, okay, what are we going to do to make sure we're in the same boat? That's my own sense.
Let me tell you my feeling about pulling 55 more people in. I think there's going to be at least one holdout. So if you're going to get one person in and get them to agree with it, and I'm not sure what our legal stance would be in saying we're going to pull 55 of you out of all the farmers in Ventura County or in the Fox Canyon area within our boundaries, and we're going to put different restrictions on you. I'm not sure where we'd go with that. I really am not. But I do have a question of Al. Al, if we were to continue this, would we continue, because I believe this is the only meeting that Lynn is not at, would we continue then with Lynn being here, or would it be Robert who would be here?
That's a good question.
What we at United have done during these situations is we would require Lynn to review this document, this tape, to catch up with everything, confer with his alternate, so he would be prepared to step in his back in his place, because he is the primary person. That's how we've done it in the past, like on our public hearings for groundwater and stuff like that.
That makes sense, and as Mike was speaking, I had another thought on it, which is that whether it's Lynn or Bob, is they represent United's interests. So I think it would be appropriate for Lynn, if he is available and in attendance at that meeting, to hear the item.
As long as he's listened to the...
Yes, he would have had to review the audio and video of this hearing.
Okay, so what do we do?
Well, I'll try this at this point in time, recognizing that there is an economic hardship in terms of doing that, but for us to get to the right policy on this, I'd make the motion that we continue this item to our next Fox Canyon meeting, which is going to be August 15th. I recognize that these gentlemen need to make economic decisions, but they've heard this in terms of where we are, but we also have to make the right policy decision. And I think we're struggling with just saying, yes, 7 more wells, that doesn't recognize that we have to change, that we have to do something more than that. So that motion would be to do that, and then to ask staff.
Go ahead.
And then to ask staff to see if, based on what you've heard here, if there's another item that you can agendize that would help us. I appreciate what you're saying. You said, there'll be one holdout of those 55. I don't think that's the case. I think we'll have 55 holdouts. I don't think anybody's going to come and say, yeah, I'm
I said
ready.
at least one.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to come. But it wouldn't be necessarily these 55. What are the characteristics that put people together? I mean, people, we've heard a lot about...
Okay, let's see if we got a second to your motion.
Well, okay, but if I can, this
Okay.
thing is, we've got, people in the Las Posas Basin have a different issue, for example. So will we ultimately come up with different kind of requirements when we put together the whole sustainable package, I think we will. And so maybe we do that. So my motion would be if staff has any, if they come up with anything that could help us examine this possibility, and we can all work on that, of how do we have similar people, people who are similar to these gentlemen that have come in front of us, be treated the same. So
Okay, we have a motion. Everybody understand the motion? Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just would ask the group here to, are we truly in a puzzling state here? Robert and I seem to at least agree that on at least the findings that were presented to us, I don't think we can at this point find there's negative findings. At least I hear two of the directors thinking that. Secondly, I think there is a real issue that Charlotte brought up about equal and fair treatment. We've always tried to do that here. To state, okay, we're going to let you drill your wells, but you're going to be held to a different allocation format than the rest of the farming community. I don't think we can back that up. I think it's going to get challenged. And number two, it's just not fair. It might very well be the wrong direction for the agency to take. And if it is, I think we have a method of correcting it by adjusting the IAI accordingly for all agricultural users downward again. And we may do that again in another 5-6 months. We may have to do it again after that if this drought continues. I think that's well understood by the community, and I think they consider it fair. But to hold this up and to hold these individuals up with getting their plantings going, I don't know that I see the reason for it. So I'd ask us to reconsider it, and I think Director Bennett's idea of having a broader policy for that entire PTP area makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that's something we could do today. Agreeing that we're going to do what we've always done, try to treat all users, all pumpers in a fair manner, and we do have a mechanism to fix that if we find out that it wasn't sufficient.
So let me clarify whereabouts I was with it when I was agreeing with you. If they were to be granted a permit, and if a condition on that permit was that they were only allowed to extract the amount of groundwater that has historically been delivered to them, so that's at a net zero, then I would agree with you.
And that's in column 3.
That's column 3. But if you go with IA over in column or under option 3, no, that's an entirely different game. And I do think that there is net detriment, and I do think it will impact water quality. But if you can keep them at a net zero for the amount of water that's been delivered and what they will extract, it's a zero sum.
Okay, but we're talking about the motion on the floor right now.
Understood, but that's why I was
Well, he's
responding to.
clarifying what I told him he was agreeing to. And so we don't agree, no.
Okay.
Well, maybe we do.
Okay, if you want to even confound the matter even further, what year are you talking about of deliveries?
This delivery here happens to be 2009 through 2014-1.
Because the recent deliveries were mostly groundwater, and then the previous deliveries were mostly surface.
Which helps them.
No, because you're going to hold it, if you're going to hold it to average groundwater over a certain period of time, they get short. And then again, it's a separate allocation program. I think it's...
And then we're back to that, yeah.
Okay, Dr. Kelly.
This is called the greatest annual groundwater delivery in 2009, not average.
The reason I'm opposed to separating this group out is that how we got where we got was an overriding attempt to keep everybody in the same plan. And I think to depart from that begins to pull people apart, where people will have a feeling that there's special interest groups who are treated better or worse, or maybe perhaps some better, but more importantly in this case worse. And our exec officer did the very best he could to to avoid that in the discussion. Chairman Malhart did the same. And we ended up coming out of there with what seemed like a consensus. And if you remember, the whole hoopla kind of died away because everybody at least could say, you know, I had my say. And now to superimpose a new standard is, I think, not going to help cause that cohesiveness that we were able to create. And even if it's, I don't think people are going to go out and use more water just because they got an opportunity to turn it on. And as you know, Stuart Stiles was here with us early on, working at Ryder Brothers over by Camarillo High School on a program of where to put the drip tape to drive the salinity away from the plants and all that. So the strawberry industry and all other industries are working hard on this statewide, and they're going to have to continue to because, again, the whole state is in the same deal. And so I would ask us to not pass this motion because I think it separates the unity that we were able to generate.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. You know, this is really hard. In the 28 years that I've been an elected official, I can't think of anything else that came up to being this hard because I got stuff on one hand and I got stuff on the other hand. And what keeps coming back to me is that these people, I believe, are probably the only people other than maybe two more whose applications were not complete. Or maybe not. I don't know the circumstances of the other two applications. But they were among the few people who did what was expected of them. They got rid of their wells. They signed up for a program that was supposed to do the right thing, and they did the right thing, and they got rid of their wells. And now they would be punished. And in my, you know, you people are farmers and deal with farming more than I do. I deal with residents in a city. The biggest question I get from people when we said we were going to require 20% cutbacks was, I'm already in Tier 1. I'm already using 5 or 6 maybe units of water. A unit is 750 gallons. And how can I cut back any more? And so you have to look at fairness at some point. They thought they were doing the right thing, and they would be if we just said no, we would be proving no good deed goes unpunished. On the other hand, at some point we do have to start saying no because we have an aquifer to protect. That's our charge, and we have to start doing that sometime, and it's been pointed out here a lot today that we haven't done that. So I don't know. I have a hard time supporting delaying it because I'm not sure what delaying is going to do. If we come back and just have a lengthier discussion about all of this stuff next time without a new solution, I'm not sure we're going to get anywhere, and we're still going to be down to it's really hard. So, anybody have any other thoughts? Or should we just call for the vote?
Let's call for the question and see how.
Okay. We will have a roll call vote on this. Okay, let's please restate the motion as you wrote it down.
I'll try, as I know I...
Oh, I was going to ask Jessica.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Jessica, restate the motion. Excellent.
The motion is to continue this item to the August 15th special board meeting with the potential for the staff to address another item that could be agendized to help encompass the possibilities for those outside the micro PTP system to be addressed and treated fairly.
Okay.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? So what you're asking is that they bring in a way to bring the other 55 or whatever people in.
Not necessarily the other 55, but I don't know whether they can do that in this without more direction even from us. But I'm not ready today to feel the confidence that that I can vote to do something that gives me confidence that we're actually putting similar people into the same boat together with a sense of that we have to cut. I don't know whether staff can do that or not. It's an unusual thing to not actually very specifically give them direction, but it's because it's the toughest item that we've had probably in our careers. It's the best that I can come up with at this point in time, but I'm not ready to go forward.
Were you going to say something?
I just wanted to know if that was a question.
No, it wasn't a question. No.
Okay, it was a rhetorical question. Yeah, we were asking, okay. Roll call.
Chair Craven?
No.
Director Iranio?
Yes.
Director Bennett?
Yes.
Director Kelly?
No.
Director Borchard?
No.
Okay, so let's see if we can come up with something else. My problem is in putting it off, and we still don't have any idea really of what it is we're going to do. I have a feeling what we want done before August 15th is a solution to the whole problem, and we're not going to come up with that. I don't think staff can do that.
Madam
Is that a
Chairman, could I?
question?
That's a question.
All right, what we can do, if you like, is present you the issue with the rest of the PTP users. We could go do some research and bring it back with recommendations on how those PTP users might be treated so that there was the equity that I think you're looking for. That's something that's very doable in a boiler.
In that amount of time, can you find out if their wells are registered?
We can.
Can you find out if their wells are metered?
We can. I asked Rick that question. He thinks he needs about a day to get that done. Then we'd have to meet with United and talk about the agreements and what's going on, and that's.
May I ask
Yes.
Al a question? Al, can we choose or add to the conditions that were given us with staff? Or does that require another meeting?
No, you can add whatever conditions.
So if
you
we
feel.
add a condition that says that condition number 9 would be that under no circumstances under this agreement will they exceed column 3, the greatest annual water, or no, the
Greatest
the greatest one.
greatest
From
annual
United.
groundwater delivery
Right, from United.
2009 to
Right.
2014.
We can add that it should not exceed that amount.
Yes, in fact, that's one of 2 specific conditions that the ordinance allows your board to impose, which is to place a limit on the amount of water use. The other, which I don't know if this would be useful or not, would be to place a term on the approval. In other words, you wouldn't be approving it, it wouldn't be a permanent approval. If the board wanted to revisit the issue.
Something like the permitted use of these wells will be reviewed annually by the CEO?
Something along those lines, yes.
You said we could add 2 things. Kathleen said earlier we could also add one for depth.
Right, those are specifically identified in the ordinance as being appropriate conditions. Your board also has the discretion to add any other conditions.
Does it require procedurally a motion to amend the suggestions, or do we just add it in the motion?
You would just add it in your motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move that we accept the conditions, we approve these permits, and that we accept the conditions as written on page 5 of 6 of item 10, with the addition of proposed permit condition number 9, that the extractions are not to exceed the extractions listed as the greatest annual groundwater surface deliveries 2009 to 13 on
14?
It was this column here that he
Yeah, option 2. Director Kelly.
1, 2, 3.
Option 2.
No, but that doesn't have to follow. Option 2 doesn't necessarily need to be what we're doing. We would do option 3 with this caveat added as a condition.
And that makes it option 2.
I like hybrids myself.
So he's talking about groundwater plus surface water. He's talking about column number 4. Isn't that what you're talking about right here?
Well, I just want to satisfy Mr.
Robert's
Araniel's.
talking about column number 3, right?
Column 3.
But I believe that Dr. Kelly is talking about number 4. That's what he pointed to here.
Well, I was confused. I was going to accept whatever column he was pointing out to us is my problem.
Oh, okay. There's a great deal of difference.
Oh,
if
a
you
hell
looked
of a
at
lot
it.
of difference. But
Yeah, option 2. I'd be willing to go with option 2 if upper aquifer only.
I was going to ask about that.
which is in direct contrast to the condition that staff had, I think.
No, that's what it says. That's number 8.
Upper aquifer only. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's correct. All right.
Okay.
So we're on the same page on that right now?
Option 2.
Okay. But that, I really think that in the end, they need to come to the AIA as part of their look at. We may find that the AIA cuts way below this, is my point. If we can cause Lynn to be gone someday when it was needed, you will get your chance to vote, I promise you. I will beg him to fly somewhere so you can get your jollies by voting something, okay?
Okay, so is yours an official motion?
Yes, if I
To-
can be permitted.
To accept option 2, is that what you're saying? With the addition of a condition. No, there's no additions.
Groundwater. I think, okay, let's do it option 2, and that at the end of a year, we would, or in the meantime, I think, option 2 with the table of the period 2009 to 14, or AIA, whichever is the less. IAI, rather.
I just want to point out, Dr. Kelly, that the option 2 number will always be less than the IAI number.
Right.
If option 2 is...
You're looking at number 4 when you think they're more. It's more than column 4.
I'm just saying, if we pinched the IAI to 50%, we're going to someday get close to near, it's going to get tighter
If we
and
get
tighter.
it down, okay.
This is the same problem that we just defeated, the fact of treating people differently. You've created a new allocation scheme for one group of people that is different from
Not really,
the
David.
IAI.
If we tighten IAI, that will be uniform across the whole agency.
Yes, but
We're not doing that
your
right now.
motion is to put them all on this groundwater delivered from United.
Well, that was my prayer to get Robert satisfied.
Well, it's the same problem.
Could I get you satisfied just to forget that?
Okay.
I really still would reiterate that got to treat everybody the same rule book, same boat. It's the IAI boat, and reduce the IAI as appropriate and as necessary until we get to that point.
All right, well, let's just try that one then. Number 3.
Let me make that motion.
Okay, I withdraw my attempt to make a motion.
And we have to consider the findings we have to make. Al, will you repeat the findings we have to make? I need to make a call and let people know that I'm not.
It's a finding of no net detriment based on a determination either that it will not result in material degradation of water quality or that recharge will not be materially diminished.
Okay, so considering that we have to make one of those findings, please make your motion.
My motion would be that the second finding, that it will not have a negative impact to aquifer recharge, I think we can all agree upon. So we've found that that finding, we don't affect that. And then the motion would be that these wells would be permitted, that the drillers of those wells would be required to report under IAI, that they would be subject to all the proposed permit conditions in the packet here, 1 through 8. And I would add number 9 condition, that when the PTP system was available for use again, that they would go back to the PTP system. Does that sound agreeable to everybody? Does that make sense?
I'm just writing it down. Okay? Everybody, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion? Is there any discussion on the motion?
Call for the question.
I'll just
Okay.
explain my position on this. I don't want to suggest you're making a mistake, but I think that 3 weeks for us to have the conditions be, more appropriate would be, I think, the better thing to do. So I won't support this, but it's not a criticism of the members as they do this. And I would be supporting, for the benefit of I would be supporting something, but it would be with at least conditions that I had 3 weeks to spend more time on in terms of working on.
Any further discussion?
Chair Craven?
Yes.
Director Iranio?
No.
Director Bennett?
No.
Director Kelly?
Yes.
Director Borchard?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Executive Officer's Report. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second to receive and file. Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. The meeting is adjourned to a special board meeting on August 15th at 1:30? Oh, 9 a.m., sorry.
August 15th at 9.
August 15th at 9 a.m. I had a slip of the memory there. Okay, I gotta let them know I'm not coming.